nobody cares, call me to order by my watch, 7:02, by the Wardsboro School clock, 6:56, 7. There's a sign-up sheet going around. If everybody would not mind signing in, that would be slick, so Peter knows who was here. We gotta be careful of the video guy. Everybody should wait to him when you start talking, and just state your name if you have a comment to make. My name is Rich Warner. I'm the chair of the River Valley School Board.
I'm Rick Gould, I'm the vice chair of the River Valley School District.
And Barry Pearson, Wardsboro.
Dwight Borum in Wardsboro.
Laura Spillia, Dover.
And I don't, Katie McDonald, Katie said she wasn't gonna be the next one, but maybe I confused it. And it was, pardon?
They're away.
They are away?
Oh,
Okay. So they're, you know more than I know. So additions, deletions to the agenda, is there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Only Anita asked that she be put off till 7:45, but she didn't specify which clock, so we'll see which one she shows up by. That was all I had for additions or deletions to the agenda. If nobody else has any, move right along to members of the public. Is there something that isn't on the agenda that's going to be covered later? Does anybody from the public have a comment? Okay, there's no members of the public. Review and approve the minutes of the July 23rd, 2018 meeting, professionally done by Mr. Peter over there. Any comments on the minutes? Does anybody need a copy? Tammy made us a couple extras. Merry Christmas. And yeah, that just reminded me, there are agendas out in the back corner, on the desk by the door. If there's no comments, I'd take a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Motion passes unanimously. Communications report, we're going to put off till Anita comes in. Old business, review request of district clerk and formulate a plan on how to move forward. So back last year, we met with Cindy McLean. And
Back on vacation.
no, I thought she was here at the next meeting. She's not. The two people that just came in, there's a sign-up sheet floating around, you can make sure you sign up. Okay, and then there's agendas on the back desk, and we're up to old business. Carrie, how are you? Okay, so last summer, we talked with the district clerk, Annie McLean, about changing how we do business with the budget vote. So on October 16, 2017, he gave us an email or a memo that talked about what he had to do to take care of, do with the voting. And then on the November 2nd meeting, we had a discussion, and Amy's letter was, whether we vote by the ballot, by Australian ballot, or from the floor at our annual meeting. And in his memo, he says, if from the floor, you don't need to worry too much about the clerk position. The primary work will be recording, keeping, and minutes taking at your annual meeting. I would recommend you find someone interested and nominate them at your next annual meeting. So if anybody really is dying to do some public service, we're going to need a clerk for the River Valley Unified School District. If by Australian ballot, the clerk position will require a good deal of specialized knowledge and access to significant institutional resources, and he mentioned C's previous memo. Doing this in addition to what I already do on town meeting day is not something I would take on. However, after much thought, the only thing that makes sense is if you choose this route is that I am a clerk and it would be difficult for someone else to do this job. However, if you want to nominate someone else, please do so. Your decision should be based on what's best for the kids and voters. Here are the pros and cons as I see them. Floor vote, pro, voters can hear explanations from you before voting, it will be better informed. 2, voters can make amendments to the budget before voting. If the budget is unpopular, they can change some things and still vote yes. Some cons are if a voter Voter turnout at a school district might be skewed to include more folks from the town in which a meeting is held. Dover voted to cut this great program at Wardsboro School. Voter turnout will be much lower than at town meetings, so a less representative vote. And under Australian ballot, he has a pro that more people will vote since there will be significantly greater turnout at town meeting, and people can vote absentee or on town meeting until 7 p.m. And since voting will take place at regular polling places in both towns on town meeting day, voters from both towns will have an equal opportunity to vote. And the cons are people can and will vote without going to your annual meeting to hear your explanation of the budget. And if people aren't happy with the budget, the only recourse they have is to vote it down. Then there's a time-consuming process where you have to come up with another budget and warn another vote. It's a tough decision. I'm more ambivalent about it than I was before talking with Titzel, Page, and Fletcher. You could also change a voting date or the commingling requirements after 2019 to make it more doable for someone other than me to have these pluses and minuses. And the commingling, for those of you that remember, is they can't count the votes from Wardsboro when somebody called Andy, and Andy counts the Dover votes. We have to dump all the votes into one big box, shake them up, and then count them. Then that way we don't know where the votes came from. You might decide to put it on the ballot in 2019 with the budget and let the voters decide. However, it has been found out that the board can just vote to do it without having to bring it to the voters. So in Dover and Wardsboro, our respective town meetings, the Wardsboro board, under other business, asked the voters what they thought, if they preferred ballot, Australian ballot versus floor vote, and we did the same in Dover. I think, Dwight, you want to speak to?
Yeah, I mean, most people, or the consensus was that they didn't like doing it by, hand ballot as opposed to Australian ballot. Although not everyone knew what Australian ballot meant, so they would explain that. However, it is a tradition in Wardsboro to vote from the floor. I think most people agree that they probably continue that way.
And in Dover, it was pretty much the same. A majority of the people wanted to vote. I think there's maybe one or two nays. Again, it wasn't a warned article, it was under other business. And we also brought it up at the River Valley meeting in February, and we had a pretty good turnout from Wardsboro and Dover. Not a lot of people total, but it was, I think there's more Wardsboro people than Dover. And I don't remember anybody really wanting the Australian ballot. I think everybody was looking to do a floor vote. So that is something that the board can do on our own, and we just need to make a decision whether or not we want to do that. And I'd like to just, move that along because it's something that's been hanging there for a while. So I would take any thoughts from the board or the public that is here. And in keeping with our policy or kind of our unwritten policy, at the next meeting in Dover, we'll discuss it again because we try to bring things up in both towns before we make a major decision. Yes, go ahead.
Are we talking strictly about the budget now, or are we talking about
Just the vote for the budget,
just the
yes.
budget? Okay.
So, anybody from the board have any burning desires to speak?
On the budget?
Whether we do it by Australian ballot or by floor vote?
One more question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Are we required to do it a certain way this year, or we can make a change?
Yeah, we're required to vote by Australian ballot the first year.
Okay. So it's
The
really
board can change it on our own,
for the fall.
right, for the following and then thereafter. Or the board can also put it before the voters at this next town meeting or annual meeting. And we also can just not change anything and stay by ballot. So that's my question.
I just think there's a long tradition in both communities of, having some back and forth and input from the public, from the floor. And it's important to have that. So we didn't hear any real glaring objections during any of the meetings, so I think we should keep it that way. That's my thoughts.
I think it's also going to be important combining now having one school district, that the ability to talk about budget items and discuss it rather than a vote on the budget, yes or no, without having some feedback from voters about what questions that they have that maybe we didn't anticipate. So
I agree. people voice their opinions when you're voting from the floor, what they like, what they dislike. Get a lot of feedback, and again, it's a tradition in both towns. I think we keep the floor. Yes.
Laura?
I agree. I would like to see us go with the Australian ballot. I am a little.
Australian ballot?
No. Of course, not with the Australian ballot from the floor. I'm a little concerned though, because I think everybody agrees and likes that because they know what that means and they know how that feels and they envision what that looks like, and that is not what's going to happen. It's going to be different, like everything. And so I think that is optimal for us to be able to interact with the voters, but I also think we have to make sure that we encourage people to come. So.
Yeah, I would agree. Just so everyone knows, the vote on the budget will be at the River Valley's annual meeting, which is in February, so it won't be on town meeting day like we used to. So this is another night, we're asking everyone to come out to discuss the budget. I would think a lot of people would come, because it's important, and it'll be in a location, I think, that we switch year to year, is that right? So, 1 year will be Dover, 1 in Wardsboro, and, yeah, I think if I'm hearing that people correctly still want to do it by the floor.
Yeah, we'll start way back.
So,
Just can you state your name?
Neil Cutler, Wardsboro. So, in the past, when we had our separate school boards and whatnot, Wardsboro did theirs the night before the town meeting, and I hear you saying that it's gonna be like the month before, but it'll be, I'm just clarifying, will it be an evening meeting like this, or is this gonna be something daytime?
I mean, I guess we could have that discussion with our community, would you like to have a Saturday afternoon meeting or a, Tuesday night meeting?
Okay.
I wouldn't see it because town meeting is specifically reserved for town meeting, and because we have to do the town meetings, I don't see it being on town meeting day.
No.
And being that, I don't think it would make sense for us to have a meeting during the day on a weekday.
Okay.
So-
Wardsboro had, for the past several years, we've done our school budget the night before
Right.
town meeting, because more parents have been able to be involved, which as a parent and someone who works, that's been great, so I was hopeful that it would stay something like that so I could get there.
So a lot of places have tried different things, like Vernon does a meeting on Saturdays, or sometimes, or they tried Saturdays, then they went to evenings, and they start on like a Monday, and then they go through, but remember, will just be for River Valley, so it won't be like a town meeting, usually starts at 10 and goes to 4, or 3 or 4. It shouldn't be that long, because usually do the town and the school, or school and the town. So it should only be a couple hours, so if we started at 7, by 9 to 9:30, we should be done. And we also have the ability to recess a meeting to a date and time specific, or just recess indefinitely. So there is the ability, if there's a really good conversation, that we could carry it over the next night.
Okay.
Then I think you had a hand up, and we'll go back to this man.
Mark Schauber. Middle of February, weather-wise, is something to consider. That's all.
Yeah, but we had snow April 15th too.
That is,
It's
and we had, this past February, we had 70-degree weather, so.
yeah, it's how do you tell the weather? Samantha?
Samantha Bobak, I teach here at Wardsboro, but I'm a Brookline resident. But I just wanted to comment on how Newbrook has worked, because we've been doing this for many years now, and it works pretty seamlessly. The townspeople from both towns come and do the annual meeting and do the vote on the floor. And, the first year you get a lot of people, and then as they get comfortable with the process, like everything else, it might dwindle. But, February is February. We go through the same thing. Should it be a Saturday? Should it be a Thursday? Should it be... It's the same old story, different day, but it's winter, it has to be done then. There's not really a lot of wiggle room as far as that date of February, so you get what you get.
One of the things, I'm just reading from the notes from the attorney, and they suggested if we did a district-wide meeting, that we do it on the Tuesday following town meeting day. And then there was also something in here that if we did a ballot, we maybe do the ballot on like the week after town meeting, so that we could not, one of the things Andy's concern was is, trying to run two totally separate elections at the same time, and it would be the same for the Wardsboro clerk. And, they said we could also don't have to have the ballot vote on the same day as town meeting. But then you still have to set up two polling places, so it's a lot of work. So there are a few or some options that we could do. Any other comments from the audience?
Go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were pointing at something.
No, I just want to be clear that we could elect board members at town meeting, even
Well, that was
if our
the next
meeting
thing.
is not the
That's
same.
the next thing that I was gonna throw out there. So on the voting, I just reread this, and he says that he feels that the board could change the method of voting by majority vote, but he also said he'd like to see it, if we did it by a ballot, if we did it as an Australian ballot on town meeting day, it would prevent anybody from saying that it wasn't done properly. So maybe that's something we should consider, is just have it as a ballot vote on town meeting along with the budget.
Whether or not to do Australian ballot.
Right, and then we'll just have to do some education. Or he says that we can, because it wasn't written into the article that was voted specifically verbatim, then he felt that we could change it as a board. But the safer thing, he said, could be have the electorate change it. Any thoughts on that from you guys?
The advantage of doing that is that the same group of people who wouldn't necessarily come to a meeting would have a vote in whether they want to have a vote, in essence, on the budget.
That's a good point.
So we should just have a vote in order to change it?
Well, it says we can do it. He says that may be the safer thing. He feels as though, and of course, we're in a whole new uncharted territory.
Well,
And remember, you can ask, I shouldn't pick on Carrie, sometimes you get several answers to a question from an attorney. Because, there isn't case law for him to look at. This hasn't happened before. And I know attorneys rely a lot on case law, that's been vetted by a court, so. So we'll discuss that one again at the next meeting, and then we'll try to make a decision. And if we want to do it, I'll talk to Andy how difficult it would be to just add that to the ballot. We can maybe do the ballot, say, have the budget, and then have a vote. Yes.
I just don't know if it's necessary. We already went to town meeting, discussed it with all the citizens. It was pretty widespread, at least in Wardsboro. You're saying the same in Dover. It is necessary to have a ballot measure for this, but I'm willing to do that if I think it's necessary.
Okay. Everybody good with that? So we'll try to make a decision at the next meeting. Maybe not here at the next one. Maybe not. See, somebody said you were out of town today.
She's our best.
Maine isn't that far away. Then the other thing was we talked about voting for members. And in Dover, we've always voted by ballot. You have to fill out a petition and then be elected. Who was the last one? You were the last one elected in
Yes.
Dover. How many people ran against you?
I was writing.
You were writing, and you got the required number of votes.
Yes.
Okay. I can't think of a race where, I think the last one, where there was actually competition was,
5 or 6 years ago, probably.
okay, so, and I've done the last 2 Wardsboro Town School District meetings, and I think they went around the room. Did you guys ask everybody in the room the year you got off 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And
It's difficult to get somebody to step forward at that point in time.
Yeah, so Wardsboro would like to keep that they'd be elected maybe at town meeting by floor vote and not by ballot at town meeting. And I think I'm correct on that. And it says that we can change, it is permissible since the directors are elected based on their town of residence. There are no at-large board members to be elected. as a whole district, like in the West River group, they have some at-large members. I think they both come from Townsend this time around. So everybody, if you live in Brookline, Samantha gets the vote for them from Brookline, for the at-large, but then there's also members from Brookline that get elected also. Then only Brookline gets the vote for it. So we would need a majority vote in an upcoming board meeting to change the language to allow the directors from Wardsboro to be elected by a floor vote. And similar to the budget vote, a conservative approach would be to have the voters vote by Australian ballot. So if we want to be very conservative, we would do it by ballot. If we don't care, or if we feel that it's okay, we've got enough input, we can do it as just the board voting. So again, I would ask for comments on that. More from Wardsboro.
So, because I think when we got nominated from the floor, we still had to get signatures, and then when we went in to vote on town meeting day, were we on the ballot?
That was for the River Valleys.
That's for River Valleys.
Right, and that's how it is from now on.
Okay, for River Valleys, it's gonna be like that from
Right,
now
so
on.
for Wardsboro School Board, you still got elected from the
Right,
floor.
yes, it was.
But for River Valley, you had to vote if you wanted to approve the merger, and then you had to vote for the board members.
Right.
So that's how it will continue to go. It'll be a vote by ballot unless we change it. So Dover will probably keep it the way it was because that's what Dover people are used to, and that's what we heard from the voters in Dover, that they were okay leaving it that way. And then I think at the annual meeting in Dover, it was pretty well split along what town it came from. I think Wardsboro people liked the floor vote, and the Dover people liked to vote by ballot, so.
So we need a vote to go back to that in Wardsboro.
We
is
would,
what
yeah,
you're-
the board could either vote to do that, to allow Wardsboro to vote from the floor at town meeting, or we could do it, add it to the ballot, and there can be the question about voting on the budget. There can be a question on, well, the budget, voting on the budget, and voting for board members.
And that question would just be in Wardsboro?
No,
Yes.
not, somebody says here, it says the River Valleys.
On the board members?
Yes,
Oh, so we would all have to,
we would all have to vote, if we voted by ballot.
The board.
or he said.
Or the board
put it
can
out
just-
as a ballot.
Right, so the board can just make motions. I mean, say, I make a motion that all the Wardsboro directors are elected by Ballin, Dover, and members from Wardsboro are elected from the floor at town meeting. And if there's a second, and a
So
majority of us say aye,
So
it's
moved.
done. You know,
So
we're not moving it yet.
Now we-
Because we have to discuss it back. And hang on one second. Or, he said the more conservative method is to put it on the ballot, so everybody would get the vote, because it would be the same thing, it wouldn't just be the Wardsboro. Is that as clear as mine?
Yeah.
So
Be
you
good.
discuss that with Dover as well.
Yeah, we kind of agreed that we would always, and some people from Wardsboro, remember our last meeting in Dover, we had Wardsboro people outnumbered us a lot. Yes.
Jennifer Fennell. I just had a question because I guess I'm getting confused. When you're talking about electing members for the River Valley Board, you're talking about at your annual meeting in February.
No, it would be, you would vote, so if you elected by ballot, okay?
It would be on.
You would vote for it when we did the ballot vote on town meeting day,
Okay.
okay? If you want to elect them from the floor, because it's strictly Wardsboro, Dover people have no say in the election of the Wardsboro members. You could do it by ballot on town meeting day, or you could do it from the floor on town meeting day.
Either way, it's from town meeting.
It's just harder for Wardsboro as we have our school vote at night because a lot of parents don't come to the town meeting. So that's where I'm feeling like that we could run into, you know, a problem with that.
As far as, you probably.
Well, hang
it's on the ballot.
Wait a minute. This room really is not great for, and I can't hear very well. So I'm going to recognize Barry, and then somebody out there was talking. We'll get to you next.
I think it's gonna get to more, like Jen was saying, it's gonna get to more voters if it's on the ballot than opposed to a floor meeting that people might not be able to get to. I mean, as an opinion, as far as exposure anyway.
Somebody out? Yes.
So am I, am I understanding clearly that it doesn't have to be the same in each town? We're just talking about what it might look like.
So-
And we would only be voting for our Wardsboro 3 spots, and Dover would vote for their Dover 3 spots, however we choose to vote.
Well, actually, so just to clarify things, so we can make this muddier, because we don't have any at-large members and it's only voted from the town, we can do it separately. Like the River Valleys, the West River people can't because there's at-large members. So everybody, so we could definitely split it, that's not a big deal. But you only elect one member a year because there's 3 members and they have a 3-year term. So every year you would, and the River Valleys, it's true.
So we have 2, 3, 4 years.
No, from 10, we did the first time around because we weren't gonna have elections. So everybody's term becomes a 3-year term.
Okay.
So,
So how do you figure out who's potentially renewing and who's?
well, the people that had a 4-year term will be elected in 2021. The 3-year term people will be elected in 2020, and then 2019 will be the 2-year term people.
Oh,
And we know who they are, but then you run for 3 years thereafter.
I see.
So that way what they try to do is, that's why, like, if you have a 5-member board, you have some people with 2-year terms and some with 3. You hope not to replace a majority of a board at any one time. Because it can become a very abrupt thing and it can create a lot of chaos. So they try to make it so that you can, still should be a majority available. And when you vote for people, you vote for them for that year and you know what their term is. So the first time there was a 2, 3, 4-year term, from now on you'll see a 3-year term. So who had a 2-year term from Wardsboro? Rick? Rick. And who was a 2-year from Dover?
Is it me?
Yeah, I think it's Laura. So they'll be elected this year, and unless we change it, they'll be elected by ballot. Okay, and then, again, it can be different in both towns because there's no at-large, so that's fine. And then next year, it'll be probably Barry and Carrie, and then the following year it'll be Dwight and somebody else. Because we'll never run again.
So one final question, sorry. So we can't change
Because my wife won't believe me.
we can't change the process for the budget. Can we change it this coming for or are we stuck with the Australian or for this one as well? I thought we were, but clarify that.
From what I'm reading is we can change that now.
Right. That's what I
So
thought.
that we can move forward. But again, and I'll get to you in one sec, if we want to make sure that we really get the thoughts of the public, not just the people that can come to the meeting, we can put it on the ballot. So we can do it by ballot this year for everybody. And we can also add it to the ballot for the River Valley's budget thing, and then see what the majority think, and then go by that. Is that?
Yeah, no, even though it's Australian, there'll be discussion at town meeting.
Yes,
But you
you're not allowed.
you can't run that day.
You can't, right, you cannot, if they're voting for, you can discuss articles, but you can't discuss, if you're running for a position, you can't campaign. So you can't say, vote for me, I'm better than Rick because I've got less hair. So you can't campaign, but you can, like if you had an article on Australian ballot to talk about the budget, you can discuss the budget at that time, even though you're voting on it. It's just like we were able to discuss the unification vote, even though it was by ballot at town meeting, you were still able to have a discussion. So you had another?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up. So.
You want to read this?
No. But, so the vote for the members and the vote for the budget, do those have to be the same versus like the Australian ballot versus on the floor? Okay. And then if, like what you just said, so you were saying like you could talk about it in town meeting and still make it the Australian ballot as far as the budget is concerned. So then would that be that there would be a I guess I'm trying to follow, because
There can be a discussion, but you can't change the vote. So.
you can't change, but not the vote.
Not,
So-
you can't change what you're voting on.
Okay, so not even the budget. So once it's at town meeting, you can't discuss, the budget is the budget.
Right, so it's, some years you go to town meeting and there'll be something in the budget that you don't like.
Sure.
So you say, hey, look, I see you put in $1,000 to paint the school pink. We don't want to see it painted, let's leave it alone. And you can ask that the budget be reduced by $1,000. And although the school board does not have line item, only has bottom line responsibility.
Sure.
If they all still paint the building pink after you took the money out of there, obviously you're probably not going to vote for them ever again. You can't have it, so on Australian ballot, we can say to you, hey, this is why we want to paint the building pink, and this is what we think, but your choice is yes or no. You can't amend because it's a printed ballot. Where if you have a vote from the floor, and a lot of times what's happened is schools have had issues where people haven't been happy with the budget because they thought that there should have been more money in for certain things, and they vote no, and then some people thought they spent too much and they voted no, and the board's like, we know we got overwhelmingly turned down, but why? And it's hard to, so that's one of the problems, and that's why even though you always have to have a budget meeting, and you're required, we'll do 2 meetings before the vote.
And that'll be February?
Yeah, we'll do one at the annual meeting in Wardsboro, and we'll do one in Dover 10 days before the vote, because we're required to do the 10-day thing, and then the following year, the 10-day meeting before will be in Wardsboro, and then the other one will be in Dover at the annual meeting, because that's where the annual meeting will be. So you can make suggestions. You can say, hey, look, we want to add money to the budget for painting the building pink, but we can't change it because it's already warned. So that even creates more issues. So if you're upset about something, or if you're going to vote no, it would be really good for you to come to the meeting, so if the budget does get turned down, we have some feedback on why it got turned down.
And that's, you're starting those conversations over these next few months, so
Right.
try to make it to at least one of the meetings each month.
Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the structure. The superintendent's going to prepare a budget based on what we've given him. We will have to vote on it. We're going to talk about the calendar, next item. And then we have to have it prepared by the end of December, beginning of January, because it has to be warned 30 days ahead of time. And we want to have it done and warned for the annual meeting in February, so that whatever we're talking about, that you guys will know, and then come March, you'll vote on it at town meeting.
Okay.
Okay? Have we really confused you?
No, actually, that was clearer, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else was confused? So we'll have those 2 discussions at the next meeting. We'll try to make a decision, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. Okay, so review and update the calendar. So remember way back when, almost a year ago in Wardsboro, we had this calendar. Mine was on the orange paper. So in August, we had the administration unveil some specifics of the River Valley Schools, and the board and public worked with them to complete the process, as well as representing it to the public. Carrie wanted to have a dinner meeting from 3 to 9. We didn't pull that off. But we were going to talk about staffing, curriculum, grade structure, services, financial requirements, transportation, capital budgeting, equipment, and other needed assets. So we're going to do that tonight, and we're going to do that in 2 weeks in Dover. And then September through December, the board and administration worked together to create an FY 2020 budget, and that's what we were just talking about. So if we're not voting on something, we may have a discussion about one item, and it may not happen at both schools, but there's always minutes and TV. And then the board creates the agenda for the annual meeting for FY 20, which will be held in February of 2019 in Wardsboro, and I think you're going to do that at Town Hall, right? And then October through November, we have to work on the secondary choice tuition to recommend at the annual meeting, because that will be voted on from the floor. And then we're going to have to work before July of 2019. We have to have the building of attendance, or the school, kind of the quote-unquote school choice policy. I think that we're in pretty good shape. I mean, we're right kind of where we plan to be. Is there any comments, or do we need to change the calendar at all? Yes.
The only thing I would say, having missed a few meetings also during the session, but as we're going forward, if we are, I'm curious about us duplicating the meetings, so doing one here and then doing the same in Dover, and whether, and I'm okay with doing that, but then are we meeting enough? So will we be meeting with enough frequency to get through enough of the materials if we do the same meeting twice?
I think we will, and the reason why is that hopefully at the next meeting, we won't spend as long discussing it, because people that are interested may read about it or watch it. The board is kind of up to speed. The board can, think about it over the next 2 weeks, and then we can have a discussion, and maybe it won't be as long. And then, like, girl on the way back there, she's so clear about it now. She's going to go out and advocate for it, and talk to a lot of people, and get everybody to go and tell their opinions, and hopefully we can move on.
And the meetings aren't exactly the same, Laura. There are just certain items that we're going to vote on. The seat keep coming up, so I mean, there's just a few items out of these several that we have here
Yeah.
that are going to be regurgitated.
I mean, I'm fine with doing double meetings for clarity as we're moving forward. My question was really more around, are we meeting enough? Just,
I think we are, but I think if we get into September, October, November, and we feel like we're still a long ways off, then I think we can discuss
Make
that.
that decision.
And do it while the weather's better. Before, somebody, Mark, I think mentioned, snow.
don't start so.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, so this year we may have snow in September. Because it affects me probably worse than anybody in this room. John Chadwick called me up and said, I hate plowing snow in April. He said, I don't know if I can ever do this again. So I think the calendar's okay. Are we good with that? No comments or?
Good.
Okay.
It's a lot of work still to come.
Yeah, there is. Now I get to turn everything over to Dwight for review of the building study and reserve information.
Right.
And funding for the capital budget.
Thank you. This is something that's been ongoing. I'm not sure if everyone knows exactly what we've been doing. We've hired an engineer to review both of the buildings, the structures, to make sure, really two reasons. One, to see if they're ready to fall down and if anything immediate needs to be done. Luckily, neither one was. And the other is to give us an idea of what we need to budget financially for the next 20 years. And they do that by reviewing all of the systems, the roofs, the heating system, the lighting, pretty much everything, soup to nuts. And then they give you a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet gives you an overall cost, an estimated cost for the next 20 years. So this allows the board to budget every year how much we need to budget going forward. So when the roof fails or the heating system breaks, we have that money available because we budgeted for it, theoretically, and it's there and waiting to be done, and hopefully, I should say, even be done before it breaks. It might be something that we know it's going, we can fix it before it does that. So, both studies were completed for Dover School and Woodsboro School. Both schools, which were paid for, we asked each board Woodsboro and Dover board to pay for each study, and they approved that. Each school was considered to be average. I think both schools are better than average, but that's in terms of the school that they were considered average in overall condition. They gave a few items that they thought should be done right away. We know that this building here above us needs a new roof, and that's something we're working on in Woodsboro to have done. They recommended putting lines on the parking lot. I thought that was a good idea for parking, so that might be something we might want to do. Just to give you an idea, but they went through all the systems, nothing quite immediate, a few things that probably in the next year or two, but overall, forgive me for how the budget process works. We do know we have money already in reserves, which means we don't have to go out and raise taxes in order to get this money. We do have money in reserve. Rich can probably talk to this a little bit better than I can about how the budgeting process works. But But essentially, they're estimating somewhere in the area for both schools of $100,000 a year that we should have available for things that we need. Now, I don't know if that's a lot or a little. We have a lot to go through with a fine-tooth comb. But for the both schools, they're estimating that's how much money we should have the next available every year for the next 20 years to be having no trouble to if anything goes wrong. Now, I don't know if that sounds like a lot or a little, but it sounds like a lot. Maybe, but we'll review them. I just took one quick peek at it. We'll review them. We'll go through them. We'll see if there's anything on there that maybe we disagree with. This is just a recommendation that they're giving us. We'll take it from there.
Okay, so just one thing on these reserve studies, because Dwight and I have done some of them in our personal businesses, and they'll recommend, like, you should plan on replacing a roof in 15 or 18 years.
Right.
And sometimes you get an extra couple of years out of it. So, you know, it's not as bad as it looks up front.
Right.
They're just saying worst case scenario, like we were, you know, in Dover, they said replace the furnace after 20 years. Well, we're on our, when was the addition done, Sue? 25 years ago. So we're still, that furnace is still working, it seems to be okay. But just, you know, you don't want to be caught with no money and then have the furnace just die. So it looks really scary, but it's not a bad idea to have some money in reserves.
Right.
So basically they're saying if you put $100,000 a year away in Dover, we funded 3 reserve funds. We funded 4. We funded a capital reserve, just a reserve. We funded a vehicle reserve because we own our own buses. We funded an equipment reserve for things like desks and equipment needed in the building. We also funded a building reserve. But we also, a lot of times, were able to fund a lot of it through surpluses. Because, you know, as I always joked, and I may have told you guys, you know, if I could predict what oil is going to cost us a year and a half down the road, I wouldn't be here. I'd be on some exotic island with a whole bunch of my best friends, because I would be, you know, playing the futures market and being really rich. So if we budgeted on both schools $200,000 for oil, and oil came in at 150, we have an extra $50,000.
Right, that's an excellent point. So, you know, if that's the number we need, we don't mean that we need to budget that if it's a surplus. Then the following year, we can adjust what we need to budget for capital based on if there's a surplus. And don't forget, that's what both schools, so.
And the other 2 big things is that you have to remember is, you know, they also give you a number. They're trying to predict 20 years down the road what a roof is going to cost or what a furnace is going to cost. And you don't know what the technologies are. So they say, okay, in 5 years, you got to replace the boilers in both buildings, and we're predicting it's $50,000. And it might come in at 30 or 35, or somebody may say, hey, we can refurbish that, and for 10,000, we can get you another 10 years. And remember, when you vote a capital budget, you're only voting for the year that you're voting for. You're not voting for the 20 years out. That's kind of a plan to think about. But if you vote today for something 20 years out, that doesn't mean in 20 years that's going to happen, and that's how much money is going to be spent. And after we have a few years under our belt, we started the reserve for the building in Dover at like 75 or 80 a year, but we were able to bring it down because, you know, interest got really bad, but surpluses were better, so we didn't have to raise that much. And then things that we thought were going to go bad, like the furnace in 20 years, didn't, so we were able to push some things out. So it seems really...
Right, and those numbers are conservative as well. As we go through it year to year, we may be able to find some savings in some of the things that we're fixing. They may estimate, you know, $50,000 for a roof, and we can get it done for half that. So that'll adjust us moving forward as well. But this is a conservative outlook that, you know...
And it's always good, because if something does happen, there's an emergency, you have some money in there. And reserve funds, the board is allowed to borrow from themselves. So if all of a sudden 192 students move into the district and we have to hire 5 new teachers we didn't budget for, you know, we have a place to borrow from ourselves instead of going to a bank and paying higher interest rates. And it's something, I don't know if Wardsboro's done it, but we've been pretty fluid with our reserve funds in Dover. Using them to cover different expenses over different times that we've needed them. But again, we've always promised in Dover that we would go to the voters before we just spent the money. So, is there any questions on the reserve funds? We didn't want to scare people, but it does seem like a big number. And then remember too, what the law is, you know, on June 30th, 2019, Wardsboro and Dover ceased to exist. They're just gonna disappear like in the twilight zone. And any reserve monies that we have or any surpluses will go into a surplus or reserve for River Valleys. We may start out
You may not need to budget first.
We may start out with $200,000 or $300,000 in reserve, though Wardsboro has over 150, I
I don't
think.
know what that, around that. But it was,
I don't know, I know Wardsboro's got pretty healthy reserves, and Dover's are kind of a little up in the air right now. We're probably better than 200 or 250, but it depends on what the auditors find when they do the audit for the end of the year. And then it also depends on what happens during the school year. If both schools, run a surplus, that's even more money. And I think both boards have been pretty conservative. We don't spend money just because we have it. We try to hold on to it and use it again. I think you guys moved some money from
we put it in capital.
reserve. Well, did you also put some into your operating budget for this year?
Yes.
And, Dover sometimes will do that to keep the tax rate down. And that's something that we'll carry forward with the group, so. We try to, I think both boards try to be really upfront with that. Is there any comments or thoughts on that? Good.
After that.
And then as we start doing the budget, we'll have some more numbers, and what we may do is there may be a question at both town meetings this year that asks that any reserves, any surpluses from both schools go into the reserve, and then they can just move forward from that. So we'll have that discussion later too. Anita,
Hi.
so we're gonna go back up to communications.
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay. I brought you the last two Bucketville newses for your reading pleasure. So my questions, well, first of all, everything is up to date as far as I know on the blog site. I try to keep everything up to date. And just FYI, all the comments and questions that have come in up during that meeting in June and again in July, those have all been posted on the blog site. There's a link on the homepage, and if you go to the minutes and videos pages, there are links on there. So they're all typed up, they're all printed out, they're all answered. So if you need to refer to those, you certainly can. You're welcome to circulate those, copy them in, paste them into whatever you want to send out. The comments didn't get an answer because they're comments, and the questions didn't get an answer, as you know. So those are all there, and those are all updated. So my questions for the board tonight are, I would need to know your September dates, because the first Monday in September is Labor Day, and the second Monday is Rosh Hashanah, I think. Or, yeah. So we need to pick those dates so that I can get those in the Bucketville News. The deadline is coming up at the end of the week. And then the other question from the board is there a particular thing that you want me to comment on? For those of you who don't know, the Bucketville News is a little Wardsboro newspaper. You can read it online. You just go to wardsborovermont.com, and the link is there to read the Bucketville News. But because Wardsboro doesn't get a lot of press coverage in general, we're kind of in that gap between the Deerfield Valley News is over here and the Brattleboro Reformers over here. So we rely very heavily on the Bucketville News, those of you who don't know. So they agreed to give us 200 or 300 words in every issue just to be updated. So I'll need to know your topic for that, other than the stuff that I've just explained. There have been not much incoming in the emails that I monitor. Lots of emails from Bill and Don about school business in general, but nothing pertaining to the work of the board has been coming into that email. And again, that's something y'all can help me with. There's a link right on RVUSD.net where you can, it says ask a question in a big yellow banner. If you think of a question at 2 o'clock in the morning and you say, oh, I want to ask this before I forget, just log into that, type the question, comes to me. I don't answer questions, I present them to the board. It is the board's responsibility to answer questions in an official capacity. And no question is deleted. It's not like I get to pick which ones come to the board, they all go to the board. So there's no concern about that. And I'm happy to answer questions from the board or from y'all.
So I think we're gonna hold the decision to when we're gonna meet till the end of the meeting like we usually do. So we get some input from the superintendent who just walked in. And I think his topic, one of the things that we're gonna discuss, try to do at the next meeting, but we want, see that, when will it come out?
It'll come out right September 1st. So I'm writing now for news that you want to have out in September. Unfortunately, we're way early.
Okay. I'm
So-
sorry, what was?
Right.
Yeah, it's due Friday.
Her deadline is, yeah.
So what I usually put in is the next 2 meeting dates, any updates I've done to the website, so I'll mention the Q&A thing. But if there's anything like on your timeline for your work in September, what you'll be doing at your September meetings, I can recap that for the readers. Oh, and I wanted to do a full-length press release at the start of the school year. So I'll need some time for 1 or 2 board members to get that full-length press release together and get that out on or around Labor Day as well.
Any thoughts from the board on what you'd like to see? I was thinking the voting stuff, so we can make that as clearer than we can, but hopefully we'll be able to make a decision on that before you.
Yeah, the Buckettville News promised me an extensive chunk of space prior to the voting for the school meeting. So I told them that I would need to somehow be able to explain voting in big detail prior to the meeting, and they said, okay.
The problem is we're not gonna, well, we know how it's gonna be for this year, so we can
Right.
talk about how it'll be for this year.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Any comments from the public concerning the board, all set? Okay, so I'm gonna go back to structured discussion. So, the West River group is doing a parent survey, to see, what the parents are thinking, not just the ones that come to the meeting. So, we were thinking, because we're not getting a lot of response from outside of the meetings, and we do appreciate, we're not saying that the people at the meetings aren't important, but we just want to try to involve more people. So Bill has a parent survey that he was going to present to us, and if we are good with this, then we can ask Bill to send it to the 2 administrators, and they'll send it to all current parents. So do you have a copy of that, Bill?
Yeah, it's being passed around.
Okay, can we have a copy for the board, because I don't know if anybody brought theirs.
Do you want me to post it online also?
Make sure. Yes, you can.
Thanks. So it's a very simple survey.
No,
Hang on, folks, let's have one.
It's 6 questions, front and back. And basically, it just gives an opportunity for parents. What we have found that has worked really well in West River is to work with the admin assistants, who usually have a very detailed email list of all the parents. And being able to have parents indicate really just these 6 questions to give the board an idea of where parents are thinking, to get some data. West River is doing it. They had about a 3-week window, and then they're going to review the results. One nice thing is that you get to capture the email address of the answers, so we can follow up with people if we want to have some further detail. But this will at least give an idea to the board of what parents are thinking about the opportunity of school choice.
Okay, Lauren.
Timing on this, I'm sorry, to go out.
So it's up to the board. It's really for the board to think about what is the timeline for you guys in making a decision. It can have some transportation and possible staffing situations. So I would say.
So my thought would be that the best thing would be if we agree to send it out, have Bill send it out first thing tomorrow, or have Bill get it to wherever it needs to go. And we ask that people get back to us within a couple weeks so that we can use it at our next meeting. You know, we could give them a year.
No,
I mean, it's-
So here's my, my question, concern is around, is it premature to ask about choice decisions prior to our decisions about operation?
Well, I think it can help make those operation decisions. I mean, I don't know, West River's using it before theirs to kind of help guide them, so I thought it may make sense for us to try it, so.
No, I would agree. I think it's hard to decide on what school, we don't know what they don't know what the structure is. We did ask some of these questions, remember earlier on, we had some kind of, do we have a survey, right?
Yeah, I don't think it was a
Specific survey, but there's some of these similar questions that were on here in terms of, going to both schools and that kind of stuff we would ask parents. I would suggest we do wait on it, and I think this, it seems like will be better for transportation issues and school choice, but without knowing what the district is going to look like, I agree with Laura.
I wouldn't want to wait too long. I mean, it could be something that helps us fine tune our operations discussion. You know what I'm saying? So if we kind of start feeling like we've got a direction that we're going in, that could be maybe helpful in helping us finalize. He's looking for something.
No, I'm looking for the survey we did, because
Some of those questions are on there,
I think these are a little different. So the questions we asked last time were, what category best describes you? What factors are most important to you for us to consider while we're doing our structure? And if you're unable to attend a meeting, what is the best way for us to share information? And what would a successful transition look like to you? And then an ability to ask a question.
Okay.
I think these questions are totally different. I don't think there's any question that is even near being similar.
I thought I remember some questions, but maybe I would take it out.
No, so those are the questions we asked. And then, and I thought this would be pretty helpful in us moving forward. And if you guys don't think you need this information to move forward, then we don't use it, so. Let me, kind of survey the board quickly if you want to speak or if you want.
What do we hope to get out of this?
More information is we design our structure, what are important to the parents.
That's not really what these questions are.
Okay.
Not seeing any questions about what's important, just like where would you send your child to school, many words.
Okay. Carrie, any comments?
So I just would want Bill to explain 2 and 3, because he uses a little bit different language. But introduce, and so mine was more questions, asking questions about 2 and 3. I don't mind having the survey, and I think that I think first that we need to figure out the structure.
Okay. Well, we'll go to you and then in the back. Anita.
I apologize for the whispering. We both had the same thought at the same time, that if the top of the page said, this is the policy that the board has determined for school choice, now please, give us some feedback based on this policy. So it's sort of like this is the chicken before the egg kind of thing in my mind.
In the back.
I think my question has been answered. I mean, I was feeling very similarly to what's being said, like when I'm reading over these questions as a parent whose household potentially will be impacted by this, because I also have a child in this school during the first year that this takes voyage. I feel like if I hadn't been at these meetings and I just got this survey, it doesn't, I feel like I don't know why I would choose one or the other. You know what I mean? Like, I would go with what I know because, I just don't feel like there's enough on here to say, why would I choose a different school? There's not enough information, and so
Maybe like an explanation up top on why we're asking these questions.
yeah, or even, without being at these meetings. So I've been at several meetings at different stages in the last couple of years. And I've talked with different Wardsboro board members and gotten more information there and, you know, teachers, whatever. So I feel like I could look at this and make a decision, but I know that when I've talked to some other parents, I was just having a conversation with another Wardsboro parent today who hasn't been at a meeting probably in almost a year. And, you know, she wasn't aware of a lot of the things, like she knows things are changing and stuff's going on, their lives are busy, she hasn't gotten here, so I feel like just which school would you choose and why would you choose it? I'm still, and I've been at a lot of these meetings and I still feel kind of like, you know, there's nothing to entice me to go somewhere else, so I'm gonna stay in my community. So I don't know, it feels very vague.
Yes.
Definitely. I guess I'm just questioning why we would send this survey out when we're talking about the structure and the options that were presented. Why not a survey first about that and what people, and get that out to the community versus this? I guess I'm just seeing this as...
The previous survey, we felt kind of did that. What was important to you about it, the structure?
I don't feel since the options were presented at our last couple meetings, that from Bill, you know, like he gave option A, option B. Yes, the survey did ask certain questions, but since those options have been out, you know, would you want, you know, to travel, transport your kids to Dover if we picked option B? Like different survey questions regarding the comments and things that have been going on the last couple. I guess I'm kind of confused why we're jumping to that, but that's just my opinion.
Any other comments from?
Yeah, I just say, you need to already have your decision on structure before asking people whether they can take advantage of a policy that isn't made. Because you're asking people, oh, you can choose A or B, this is school A or B. But you haven't told them what the policy is. So how are they supposed to know what they would want to choose from?
So I would say, from what I'm hearing, you guys want to just let this come.
Do you want to let it go?
We'll come
I
back.
don't think anybody's saying that. I don't think
Well,
anybody's saying that.
yeah, we're not going to use it until maybe some point in the future.
Soon.
Yeah. So my only one, go ahead.
Stephanie Lasowski from Wardsboro. I would just like to say that if you use it in the future, I would encourage that this is only getting to emails to people who are parents currently in the school district. So there are many parents who have younger children who are going to be even more greatly, at least impacted, because it's going to last many more years. So if there's a way that you can get the information and the survey out in another format other than just that, that's probably going to, you may reach people that could be very potentially impacted by the decisions. I don't realize that maybe today what's going on for the decisions for their children in the future.
So I do want to just, this is not what I want to say. I do want to say we're taping, transcribing, paying to put things in the minutes. We are doing a lot of things to communicate. At some point, people have to choose to engage. So I'm just going to say that. We can't literally go door to door. I will go door to door, but we are not going door to door to ask people this. What I wanted to say, Rich, is I feel like this survey could be helpful for transportation planning. I did not want to say to you, I don't think we should do it, just that I think we might want to have a discussion about the
I'm saying we're not going to do it right now.
Yeah, okay.
And then if I could just respond to, and I'm sorry, I missed your name. Stephanie, I'm sorry. So anyway, Stephanie, the other thing was, it was also meant just to take a survey of the parents that are currently in the buildings to see what they thought were strengths in the buildings or possibly weaknesses, or, you know, if they had a choice, would they go to one versus the other? If we had a couple parents come into a Dover board meeting that lived in Wardsboro and asked if they said, well, we're going to be one school district soon. We want our child to start off in Dover because that's where we'd like them to attend. So we just want to see if there was any sentiment that way or the other way. I did have one parent in Dover say they wanted the child to go to Wardsboro because they liked the mixed grades. So we were hoping that if somebody said, yeah, I'd like to have my child in Wardsboro because we enjoy the mixed grades. One of the comments we got was that if Dover's going to be single grade, Wardsboro should be, but maybe that's what people like is the combined grades. I know when I used to teach DARE, I did DARE in Jamaica and Newfane and Guilford and all over, Wardsboro even. And it was interesting, the difference between mixed grades and what you would see happen. So there's some people that firmly believe in that. There's staff that does that very well, and there's staff that doesn't do the mixed grades. So I think it was kind of, before we made our decisions, I thought this survey would kind of help give us some guidance as to what parents were thinking. That's why we're targeting it to those people that have children in school currently with the two different systems. Go ahead.
I think the problem for me is that the purpose of this survey is not clear. Whether it's driving your policy around school choice or if you're just feeling people out to see for transportation purposes. Those are completely different things. This does not drive me, and as I read it, to understand what the purpose, why are you sending this to me today?
My feeling was more for our structure discussion, not even to think about transportation. Not even to think about.
Which is fine, but that's not what this doesn't, like they said, it's not clear on what you're really trying to get parents to say.
Just a quick question, with what Laura was saying with, that I agree, we can't go door to door, and at some point people have to come forth. But, so will this survey be up on will the survey be available somewhere other than if I don't receive it in my email?
I cannot think of something that NDA is not posted on.
Okay, no, then that's fine. I didn't know if this would be something that would be part of that as well, so that was my question.
It was not there.
Okay.
So the thought process behind this survey, and I think the process that the West River group was using was to help guide them in the structured conversation. And they were specifically looking for parents that had students in the different buildings right now, not 5 years down the road or 5 years ago. And that was why we were just targeting a certain group. I mean, the results, so the results would be published, that we're doing the survey would be published, but if Mark has some future children in the pipeline come in, that's not who we were looking for. We were looking for the experiences in the individual buildings and maybe bring some clarity.
So I think I was somewhere between what you're saying and what Stephanie's saying. So not 5 years, but let's say 1 year. So maybe they're not in the school system yet, but in 1 year, then they're going to be part of it for a long duration. So maybe we don't have their emails yet. So that's why I was asking. So maybe those preschool or in 1 or 2 years, when it is going to impact really soon, but we might not have their emails yet. So that's why I was asking if there was another way.
And I think the intent was preschool parents right up through 6th grade parents, current 6th graders.
Sure.
So, but it doesn't sound like it's going anywhere anyway, so it doesn't matter. So, pardon?
I think it needs just a little tweak. It needs a little adjustment.
Well, let me ask you guys that. If we could give it a little tweak tonight and get it out, is there something we could tweak to get it to have some input in the future?
So right now, it would measure, right now, it's basically saying, if nothing changes, would you want to send your kid to the other school? That's what it would measure.
I'm not sure. I can't.
Yes. Bill?
More or likely.
Yes.
That was the purpose of West River.
Okay.
Okay, so review comments from the last meeting as well as the meeting in Dover. So I guess, as Anita said, and there have been no other comments online, so I have up here some, oh, you have some, Bill, too? Okay, so I have copies for the board.
Your copies for the board?
Yeah, you want to pass out. So the first majority, the majority of these are, so the majority, I've got more up here if anybody wants them. The comments from the Dover meeting are the first 2/3 of the first page, and then the rest of the comments from the Wardsboro meeting. I tried to, when I put them together, there was some cards that had multiple thoughts on them, so I kind of kept them together. So you'll see like on the last page, it says Wardsboro, safety, transportation, smaller class size. That was all one card. And then some people, there were some multiple comments, or some people wrote multiple comments, but they used separate cards for their comments. So we also asked the superintendent to maybe go through, and we said that we would try to answer these. So there were some that we labeled as public comment, which didn't really seem like it was a question, it was more a thought or a statement. And then and then the superintendent added some comments. So we have those to review. I don't know if people want to take a couple minutes, we can do silent reading, and then, or I can ask somebody from the board to read it to you folks if you want, or what do you all think? Yes, everything. Yeah.
Is it your intention to have discussion around these follow-up questions?
No, well, my intention was just to review them. I don't know if we need that follow-up. So, comments from the Dover meeting. We voted on keeping both schools open and running, operating the same. Option B had only Wardsboro making changes. Why? Wardsboro will lose our identity. Citizens voted on the Articles of Agreement. Article 3, grades include, states the unified district will operate schools for students in pre-K through grade 6 and will pay tuition for the students in grade 7 through 12 pursuant to Vermont statutes. For option B, PD, professional development dollars for the multi-grades are not listed. $3,000 has been estimated for option B, multi-grade additional professional development. Reason option B, I really resent the public comment that you are taking away students from Wardsboro. Change rhetoric. I see what is really happening is that you are fully meeting the goal stated of giving students more opportunity, and we felt that was a public comment. Rich request option B plus, a new school building in between the towns, public comment. And if option B was chosen, why would Wardsboro train for IB program only for pre-K second graders? Option A was presented and voted upon. Equity of offerings, Article 1, educational opportunities. The Unified Board will allow for educational opportunities provided at each school to be extended to all students in the district. Then comments from the Wardsboro meeting. If Dover student school has little to no change, whereas Wardsboro changes immensely, how does this keep the culture identity of Wardsboro, which was identified as an important aspect, and also keep equity between the two schools? Honoring the culture of Wardsboro, it appears all things listed are possible in option B, and slide it at the end of the answer. So if you go to the last page, there's a slide from the Vermont School Boards, Principals, and Superintendents Association on educational equity.
And then
Next page.
honoring Wardsboro.
Yeah, honoring Wardsboro is the page before, but I think that gets brought up again in a different question. In option B, there are combined classrooms, pre-K, 3K, and 1-2 in Wardsboro. Does Dover combine these grades, and if not, how does this meet the equity in education that is required? The plan does not propose combination of grades on the Dover campus. The board will discuss equity as it designs a new district and working definition of equity at the end of the answers. So if you go in there's equity way at the end. If the other schools in the district combine and send their 6th graders to Leland Grade Middle School, what will happen to our 6th graders who are now in Dover, who are now going to Dover in option B or staying in Wardsboro in option A? Will they then be behind in a year or set back in any way? And no, all 5th grade students receive instruction in the Vermont Educational Quality Standards. I think it should say 6th graders. IB in Wardsboro is a non-starter. We took that as a public comment. Have transportation costs been factored into option B, or the most likely addition of a teacher's aide in the pre-K3 class? Same card, separate question. If 2 teachers will lose their job, are all the teachers going to have to reapply for a position? So no transportation has been added, and neither has an additional aid. In option B, 15 to 18 students are expected in the pre-K3 pre-K class with a teacher, aide, and principal interventionist. The board will devise a procedure for employment that respects existing and future collective bargaining agreements. This process is unknown at this time. Families being involved was a goal mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Low parental involvement is already an issue. How will splitting siblings into 2 schools help with this? Parents will have even more events to attend, i.e. open house, PT conference, office keys, etc. Under one district board, coordination is possible and expected to address this. I think the board, Rich, needs to understand that this was a discussion and the rudeness was not a great show of blending our towns. Would have been nice to hear from more borough members. Public comment?
I'll take over from that.
Thank you.
Wardsboro, I don't think this is what Wardsboro town people voted for. We want equal opportunities for our children, but I feel going in this direction will eventually mean the closing of our town school, which would be harmful to our community. Public comment. Bus safety seems like a big issue. We should not be busing children over that mountain. Public comment. It's unfortunate to, especially with the community that came, have meetings without discussion, only questions, no answers. That's a public comment. IB program works in Dover. Is it an expense that we need to spend to bring it to the Wardsboro School? Future board discussion, decision. I strongly agree with operating each building as is and reassess next year. Public comment. Dover and Wardsboro went into this merger to continue to operate both schools. This compiled with the state's Act 46 requirement, and option A does this without compromising the culture of each school. Option B changes everything in only Wardsboro. Public comment. Would you put your kids on a bus to go from Wardsboro to Dover? I live on that hill and would not. Public comment. Thank you for your work and dedication in trying to bring the most equitable resources to our children, flourish in their education. Public comment. Next page. Option B has definite travel to Wardsboro. It would be helpful to know what it looks like before comments can be made. I am not sure I want any kids traveling unless building choice. Public comment. I would like to be part of the 7 through 12 transportation discussion. When will this happen? Fall of 2018. Safety. Ask any Dover police officer how safe it is to drive a bus full of children over the mountain and back. Rich could answer this. Perhaps. Public comment. If you estimate the numbers on A and B options now, why not provide hard numbers? Once a definite structure has been decided upon, more details will be provided. Wardsboro. Safety-transportation over mountain on Route 100. What measure arrangements will be made with the AOT, Agency of Transportation, to maintain the RTE better? Route better. Oh, route better. Okay, great. Small classroom size equals equity. Student-teacher ratio. Transportation unknown at this time. Would we have multiple buses with Plan B? Future board decision. Will you take over? No?
Oh, me? Sure. What are anticipated classroom sizes for Plan B, Dover campus, pre-K 3 through 4, 16 to 19 students? This is the Dover campus again. Kindergarten, 12 to 14 students, first grade, 10 to 12 students, second grade, 10 to 12 students, third grade, 15 to 17 students, fourth grade, 15 to 17 students, fifth grade, 19 to 21 students, and sixth grade, 17 to 19 students. The Wardsboro campus, pre-K 3 through kindergarten, 15 to 18 students, and the combined 1 through 2 would be 10 to 14 students. Option A seems like a good fit, in my opinion, with minimal changes and efforts to improve both schools, mostly Wardsboro. However, it's the more expensive option. Public comment. How did this alter the level of special ed? Option A, no change. Option B, more concentrated at Dover campus. Wardsboro, separating families with siblings being in different schools. I drove that mountain for 25 years, very dangerous drive. Safety of our children is #1 priority. This is campus. Seems like a public comment. Comment, it seems as though my children's safety is based off of savings equity. Public comment. Obviously, option B is not favorable. It's next. Public comment.
Board creates a structure, develops a budget, citizens vote.
Continue to just look at the slides from those presentations.
So the rest of it is part of the honoring the culture. This was a slide that we used, Bill used in his presentation, and it came from when we asked Tammy and Matt to come up with the, what the culture meant. And they each had 10 items, and it was, I think, 7 or 8 were similar or pretty close in both schools. And then the last one was the education, equity, and learning. So I actually have the card, so if anybody doesn't believe that there's nothing written here, you can look. And if you see your comment in there and you think I wrote it wrong, well, look at the card, because I kept them for that reason, because I got accused of that once. So they're all here. Any thoughts from the board reviewing them? Any comments from the public? Yes.
Well, I guess I'm hoping to hear something from you guys after
That's
the
it.
plan, right, is that, you know,
That's
that,
next on the agenda.
okay, excellent, thanks.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, so the next thing I had is board member comments. Each board member should be prepared to report out. So we have some paper up there on the board. And I was looking for a volunteer from the audience who has better penmanship than I. You will? So there's all sorts of colorful markers up there you can fit. So I would start with whoever would like to go first. And just, so we've had 2 meetings where we've had some comments from the public. We had Bill's presentation twice. We had the cards that we reviewed. So I just want to, and we kind of, the board, one of the things we did as a board was we did not want to make a lot of comments because we didn't want to influence people's thoughts, much like we did with the vote. We didn't tell, in Dover, we didn't tell people how to vote. We just try to present them the facts and let them decide. So that's what we're kind of hoping to accomplish here. So now is the time for the board to tell us what they think. So I'll start, whoever wants to start.
What's in you doing?
Just tell us, what your thoughts are and what your input, and then I was gonna have, she was gonna write down points that you make, and then just see how many that we have, but they're similar. Because again, when we thought honoring the culture, we would ask 10 from each school, and we'd have 20 to work with. And we only really had like 10. So, you want to start?
Me?
Sure.
All right.
Or we can let ladies go first.
Ladies go first? Yeah.
Laura, we'll start with you.
So, after last meeting, it seems clear to me that if IB is going to be instituted in the, regardless, actually. So I keep trying to circle around what this is. Seems to me that the Wardsboro community we need to set up an opportunity for Wardsboro to learn more about IB. So that I think has to happen regardless as to what we do. Because we're either going to have, one unified curriculum, or we're gonna have choice, basically. And so that's I think, basically our options for everything. So if we stay the same, then we have to have a robust choice policy, which means that people need to understand what the IB program is. And there may be similar programs in Wardsboro that we need to make sure that we educate the public about. And if we do not stay the same and we go with option B, it seems like, that may be a two-step process. We may have to kind of ease into that. And the other thing I would say is I think we just have to acknowledge that for parents that are in the system, this is incredibly difficult. And I think we have to respect that. And I think we also have to make sure that we're thinking beyond that. So both. And, you know, I can really feel good about, either scenario, ish. You know, I think both of them need tweaking, but I think the staying the same really means that we have a very robust choice policy. And, you know, I want to make sure that we have stability with the choice policy. I'm a little concerned about the, you know, the more robust and wide open the choice policy is, the less, or the more I'm concerned about stability. So, I think that might be, see now if I go first, I'm gonna have to sit here and bite my tongue the whole time. Nice and done, nice and done.
You all set? You can interject if you need to.
Yeah. Sure. Well, I have a whole bunch of notes here that keeps getting longer and longer, but I guess I'd first like to thank Bill for putting this all together based on everything that we asked him to do, and I know it's tough to do something like that, and also I'd like to say that I actually am encouraged by what came back. I find that there's some real opportunity, especially for Wardsboro, to see some additional programs added to our school, and some just kind of more equity and more opportunity, which I thought was great. I think that's what I got involved in this in the very beginning for Backboard 6, was to see more opportunity in school, and I'm seeing that on the plans. To get a little deeper into the plans, and giving opinions. Okay, I'll start with that then. So, you know, based on my feelings of what I heard from the group, I'll start with option B, which is I didn't find it was very equitable. I felt it could have been more equitable if Wardsboro had, let's say, pre-K through 2, I guess, or pre-K 3 through 2, having 4 classrooms here and 4 classrooms in Dover. Then all of the classrooms would be single grade. All the classrooms would be single grade, but that would be more equitable. That would be more expensive. Well, maybe not more expensive. It would be where we are now, with the same amount of teachers as we have now. However, I'm not crazy about that either. I don't think that's necessary. I'm not seeing any numbers where we're seeing a situation where that has to happen. We're looking at some of the numbers that were in here, and it's showing if we combine grades, like as many as 21 kids in a classroom, I don't know if that's something we'd want to do either. So I don't know if it's necessary or even worthwhile. So I'm not very much in favor of option B. So option A, I like some of the things in option A. Certainly I'm encouraged by having a foreign language. I'm really encouraged by having a digital media center, I guess, with the library.
What was that, excuse me?
Foreign language and the media center, I guess it was.
Okay, media
The
center.
media and the library, upgrading the media. This is 2 of the things we've been talking about in the Wardsboro meetings. This is great. And let's see. That's great. And then I think it would be good for Wardsboro. All of these things would be good for Wardsboro to increase opportunities. As far as IB is concerned, I know probably just as much as you guys know. But what I also know is Dover went through the whole process. Their board was convinced that it was a good thing, and their people voted, their townspeople voted for it as well. So they were convinced, and I also know that Dover is fighting tooth and nail to keep it. So that means something to me, that it's obviously something worthwhile. Now, in terms of how it relates to Wardsboro specifically, I don't know. And then maybe only time will tell for that. So as far as IB is concerned, I'm certainly leaning towards or willing to accept moving in that direction and trying it out. I think you can try it out, and if we don't like it, we can always pull the plug on it after a year or 2. That could be an option that we should discuss with the board. From what I understand, the IB program is in line with the standards, the Common Core, and some of the standards that we have here. So I think that's a positive. And I also am definitely in favor of more professional development for our teachers. I think it's a good thing. One last thing, I guess, for the town of Wardsboro specifically, I feel that this could be kind of put us on the map almost and make it more desirable for people, not just for those who may want to move here, but for those people who live here already. I do know that there are some students that live in Wardsboro who don't send their children to Wardsboro. So maybe this would be more of an incentive to have them come here as well and keep our numbers here. So I think for Wardsboro itself, it could, be a feather in our cap as well. But I don't know, and I know as much as you guys, moving forward. So that's my full-on take.
I'm gonna need another board.
So
give it 2 thoughts.
Things that are similar to, we'll just make a note of times 2 or 3. So that we only keep it in mind. Carrie, you want to?
Sure. So I think what I was struck with the idea of the option A and the option B from Bill's perspective was that it was a starting point of conversation. It was not saying that these are the only 2 options that are available, but it really gave an example of, we're going to have the conversation of all the options, the most drastic, from no change to all change, and see what was important to the voters and get some reaction, and I think it did. It served its purpose. But I think, that's not just 2 options, and we've heard the comments, and I think what struck me is that each school is an excellent school. They take pride in their community, in their teachers, in their students, and the parents that have spoke are very supportive of their school and say, we're doing great and we don't want to change because we work really hard and it works. And it works because we see our students and we see how well they are and we're satisfied with that. And I think the whole reason that 46 wasn't because we were doing something wrong. It was the idea of expanding, giving more. Like, what else can we do? Let's add some extras to the school. I think the idea was not to keep it the same. And so I've heard a lot of comments about, we're doing really well, why should we change? And my mindset is not to stay in sameness. So I'm going to be a board member that says, you know what, we may be doing great, but let's do even better. Let's give even more opportunities to our students because we should be. If we can do that and do that within a budget, why not? Because that was the whole purpose of this. But at the same time, I really heard the conversations repeated about, our school, Wardsboro, is going to be the one sacrificing to Dover, and you want us to become Dover. And how do we maintain our identity for Wardsboro if we go to, most of the students go to Dover, if we had a Dover name, we're just going to feel like we're visiting instead of it being our community, is what it sounded like. And so that's important to me also. I don't want it to be a mindset of Wardsboro versus Dover. Their students are students. Are you visiting, what school are you from? I don't want that. I don't think that was the intention. And certainly that's not the vibe from the board. We work really well together. So I want it to be a community where you feel like it's the community. It's not one school versus the other. So I think that I'm in support of change, but not the drastic change of Plan B. So I wouldn't support saying, from 3rd grade and up, we have to send Wardsboro students to Dover. Because really, you've made it clear you're not supportive that it's going to affect you, and you're going to feel like you're giving up more. And I think right off the bat, that's going to it's not going to send a good sign. We're all going to feel like it's one versus the other, and that's not the idea. But at the same time, I'm not going to give you a board member that's going to say, well, just keep it as is and reassess next year. That is not what the intention of Act 46 is. It's not the intention of our Articles of Agreement. In fact, it doesn't even fit with our mission statement or, our vision. Because the vision is to expand opportunities. And how do you do that if you're keeping the same? So with that, what I would really like to see is, an opportunity for the 2 schools to work together. So that means trying to do things where we're having, the students interact with one another on a pretty regular basis, which might mean that we're doing school concerts together, alternating between school concerts. It also might mean that we're sharing a music teacher, and the music teacher has the same curriculum. So each school is learning the same songs or the same ideas, and they're presenting a concert, sharing, maybe it's at Dover in the spring, and it's at Wardsboro in the fall, where we're inviting each school, so it's a community concert. I like that idea. Trying to have some overlap between the curriculums, between each grade. I like that idea, which means that, it's going to be potentially the teachers that will need to meet to maybe have an idea in each grade where they're having some theme that they're learning both in Wardsboro and the Dover campus, that they're doing a presentation maybe at the end of the year to all the students or to all the parents. There needs to be some interaction more regularly between each campus for the students, because quite simply that's going to be the way that you're going to build this trust that we're one community versus Wardsboro and Dover. So I'd like to see more opportunity where we're having maybe not the whole curriculum the same between Wardsboro and Dover, but we're having some overlap. And I think another part of that is that there needs to be some training at Wardsboro about what IB is. And that might not be to say that Wardsboro is going to have IB, but I think it needs to start with the teachers so that they understand, well, what is this? What are what's the curriculum? What are the principles IB? And so that the teachers at Wardsboro would have the opportunity to have that presentation that our teachers went through. Maybe it's the beginning, the first training or even the second training. I'd like to see that for the following year so that the teachers understand what it is they would need to teach their students, and in that way they can talk to the parents more, thoughtfully, and probably have some, a better understanding of what does this mean. With that, I also really would like to see Dover parents and students talking more with Wardsboro parents and students about what IB is, because it's really a nuance of when you say, well, what does it mean? What's the equity? What's the value? If they don't teach it in 7th grade, why are we learning it in the first place? If it's not continued on in high school, what's the value? And I think the value is truly like listening and watching your kids at moments when they're not in the classroom, to be honest of like how it has affected them, of just, it is a deeper level of thinking and a deeper level of appreciation of what they're learning in school. And it may not come out in, when they're explaining their homework, but I'll tell you, it comes out in the conversations in the car, comes out in conversations when they're asking me questions. It comes out in conversations when they see something and say, Mom, that was an example of a risk taker. Someone choosing to do something different, and maybe taking a stance that maybe other community members were afraid to do, or other students were afraid to do. And I can't put a value on that with money. It cost us $30,000 to do the IB last year, but it's a higher level of inquiry for your students. And, that's invaluable because it's creating better thinkers, better learners. And I just really think that that is going to continue on as adults. And I see that as, that is a worthwhile investment for students. And so I would love to be able to have Wardsboro feel confident in that, in both, having that potential in their school, and also, voting a budget that Dover wants to keep IB, because that is important to me as a member. I'm going to tell you, IB in Dover, I want it, I'm not going to budge on that. And so I want you to understand why that's important for me as a Dover member. So the only way that I can say is that we give you more examples of it, including teaching through the teachers there, some instruction, and be able to see Dover students and share some instruction, share some teaching opportunities. So that's really what I would like to see, more of that. Because then I think truly you're going to see, okay, it's not Dover, Wardsboro, it is one community, and we're getting better. So, I certainly don't want this to be the impression that Dover is trying to turn or change Wardsboro, because we're not. I'm impressed with what you do, and it went back to the presentation in front of Governor Scott with your 5th and 6th grade class doing the turnip as the state vegetable. They are impressive students because they got up in front of adults, they got up in front of the governor of the state of Vermont and gave individual presentations. The teachers went behind the students stood up and gave a presentation without cards. I was completely impressed by that. Adults can't do that, and you had 5th and 6th grade students doing that, both in Wardsboro and Dover. So again, that gave me just a great feeling of, this was a perfect fit between our two communities. So I really hope, in the paper, Lauren said that my concern afterwards is that it felt very much like Dover versus Wardsboro. We have to really change that. It's not. We are not trying to change you. You're not trying to change us. We're trying to be even better. And I feel like we are a great community, great students. I'm not looking from the perspective of what's best for Dover. I want what's best for our community. Because, we're equals. We see each other in the soccer field, in the baseball field. We do a lot of things together. We see each other in the same community. So it's an opportunity to even be better in both schools. So that's what's important to me.
I'd like to start off by thanking Bill and his staff for presenting the two options and really getting the discussion ramped up. And everyone as well for showing up and actually giving us feedback and helping us move forward to get going with this lengthy process and decision. It's tough at times. I understand everybody gets frustrated. It's things are not as black and white as they seem. We've got a lot to hash out. And speaking of that, as far as the option A and the option B, I agree with Carrie, Dwight, and also Laura. As far as we are basically becoming one community, we're going to keep our separate identities and whatnot. And both schools have great attributes, on either side. And I really think that option B, if it were to go that way, we lose identity from Wardsboro. I think, putting kids in a completely different school, and they're going to be confused. There's not going to be an identity thing. That and the safety issue of busing over the hill, and bus time. That would be, it's a lot of travel. How much do we lose in a day for traveling, plus the safety, and how many days have we even missed because the roads are bad? We already have enough as it is. So option A, I like option A. Keep things, like I said, Carrie said, I don't want it to be the same. That's not the purpose of us doing all of this. We want to combine things like, they do Spanish in Dover. We'd love to do a foreign language in Wardsboro. And, it's, the upgrade for the library would be great. Just to move forward and bring more opportunities to our children and whatnot. And I'm also for the, more professional development for the teachers. I think that's going to be an important issue forever, be it an IB program or we, go with a multi-grade professional development. Because I think Wardsboro now is, your professional development is all single grade, if I'm correct?
A little of both.
A little of both, okay. So be it, we really look into this IB program. I mean, Dover is very passionate about their IB program. They're, very for it. And I understand everybody in Wardsboro is very leery about, what's that going to mean? How much extra money is that going to cost? And, I think we really do need to, I think it's on the board already, really do more informational setup where Bill brings the IB guys in and we really talk to the community about it and see what they think. So that being said, I think we've got a lot to hash out, and like I said, as far as my opinion, option B is very much off the table. I mean, I really don't want to bus kids from one school to the next. The bottom line on the sheet, as far as money-wise, looks great that we're going to save all this money, and we're going to spend money with an option A. But I think in order for us to move forward, we're going to have to spend money on stuff. And that's just the reality of the world. It's to get more opportunity and whatnot. We're not going to save any money by cutting programs, and that's just going to hurt the students. So I really think definitely option B is off the table, and A has a lot of tweaking to be done, and we've got some discussion on that. So I think that's the way, the direction we need to move.
Thank you.
The funny thing is that these communities were one community at one time. You go back to the 1800s, kind of funny that we're coming together like this at this point. I've lived in both communities. I've sent children to both schools. Both schools have made tremendous improvements over the last 15 years. I mean, when my kids first went to Dover, which was a long time ago, you guys were, I don't want to say struggling, but, you know, I mean, things have really gotten a lot better in both communities. I think we should all feel good about these two entities coming together as one. I think that it will help our students, it will help our outcomes. That being said, we are two different communities, which is why I think that people are a little bit nervous about this. I mean, Wardsboro has a school, we have a library, and we have a store, and that's what we have, right? Everybody, Dover has a lot more going for it. I mean, you've got restaurants, you've got bars, you've got, community center, you've got a major ski area. So I think that's why people in Wardsboro are feeling a little bit nervous about this. You know, I mean, you feel like you're going to get a little problem or lose some of your identity, which is why I think there was so much pushback on Bill's second option, or option B, I believe is being called these days. I mean, I think we would have a difficult time making that sort of a drastic change between where we are now and where we will be. But we do need to change and we need to move forward. I think the reason we pick the IB program is because you realize that the state curriculum can only get you so far. And in order to improve upon that, this is your next step, right? The next step is to find a program that doesn't necessarily fit into the state standards. So I don't see really, honestly, how it hurts to have an inquiry-based learning system for your students. So just figure it out there for me if you want.
Have you figured out my system yet? Docs mean everybody said that more than once.
I mean, this is all going to make us all better. I mean, that's what we're all working for, is making this whole, the whole educational system in this valley better. And this is one way of doing it. This wouldn't have been something we would have chosen. This is something that was thrust upon us. This is something that, I'm sure none of us were thinking about 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But I mean, this is where we are right now. We have to make some changes, and I think these are all positive as long as we all work together towards better outcomes for all of our students. I think it's we're going to find ourselves somewhere between option A and option B. But I don't know, is it right now? Is there written? I can support either one. So we have some work to do as a board in order to come up with a solution that's going to work for both communities and us, and most importantly, our students. And I didn't add anything to your list either. Sorry.
You got some dots.
You got some couple of dots. I was hoping for more than that.
So you can go home and tell your wife you're
Yeah, I'm all good.
Okay, so I think we started right off the last meeting in Wardsboro, and the meeting before that in Dover, saying that Bill's presented some options, and that we will not be at option A, nor will it be at option B, but we're going to be somewhere in between. And I think the board has been pretty specific with that, or that's been kind of the tone that, we didn't expect anybody to say, wow, we love option A, or wow, we love option B, and let's do it right now. And Bill even knew that. Bill gave us two different scenarios to kind of help start the conversation. And I think, Bill, you did a great job getting the conversation going, because any conversation is good conversation. And it's also got people out, because there's been a lot of meetings that we have where nobody shows up, and we've seen some pretty good turnout. So, pardon?
For years and years and years.
Yeah. So, just a few comments I have. The study committee worked really hard, and we really understood that, it was going to seem, because Dover was bigger, that Dover was taking over. And we never intended for that to be. And we did a lot of things to prevent that from happening. One of the things we did is we had equal representation on the board. We actually, and it was recommended, we fought pretty hard with the kind of the representative from the state, our guide through the study, and even we pushed back with the Department of Ed to have equal representation, 3 board members each. Even with Marlboro, when we were looking at being 3 boards. And that we did specifically so that nobody in either town felt superior or inferior. One of the things I've been saying from day one of the study committee is There's no more Wardsboro School and there's no more Dover School. I'm really sorry, but it's River Valley School. So right now, Susan Newman, for over 25 years, has gotten a check from the Dover School District, and she will never get a check from the Dover School District after July 1st of 2019. Check is going to come from the River Valley Unified School District, and that's going to be the same for the Wardsboro staff. They've probably gotten checks for many years for Wardsboro, and it ain't happening no more. There's now a new district. It's called the River Valley School District. There is no Dover School. There is no Wardsboro School. There's going to be a building in Wardsboro, and there's going to be a building in Dover. I guarantee you that, because we've made big protections for that. Again, pushing back against the state, who did not want to approve our articles at first. And we told them it was a non-starter. If you didn't do that, we were not, both Dover and Wardsboro and Marlboro. And one of the things we did to protect that is we cannot close a building in any town unless we have 100% vote of the board and a 50% or majority, simple majority from the town in which that building is. I don't know what more we could do to prevent a building from closing. However, points that were made during the study by the state and other people were that Wardsboro's population was declining. So if nothing changed and the decline kept going, eventually Wardsboro would close anyways, because there just wouldn't be enough students there. I doubt that happens because, you know, everything's secular and it goes up and down. But if you look at the last few years, Wardsboro has a pretty good hold harmless grant that's going to be carried forward. So basically, if you lost students greater than a rate set by the state, they gave you this, what they call phantom students, and that was one of the things that it was bothering the big towns. So they wanted to see the phantom students just go away. And it did go away, and it will go away. If Wardsboro and Dover hadn't voted to merge, you would have lost that phantom student count, which was a pretty significant number. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a lot of money, as well as there would be no more small school grants. And in Dover, and we're a little bit bigger, our small school grant accounts for one teacher. I know Wardsboro's was in like $30,000 or $40,000 more than Dover. So there were some things that would have happened if there wasn't this merger. One of the concerns was, and the reason we have to have a policy, a school choice policy, and we did this specifically to protect Wardsboro, was because many parents and Wardsboro people, even parents, people that weren't parents, were very concerned that a lot of students would want to go to Dover, and that it would just create a negative atmosphere, or it would create less and less students in the Wardsboro building, and eventually it would just close. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't have that happen. So that was one of, one of the protections we did for that was a policy on school choice. The number of students in Dover has been increasing slightly over the last several years. But again, you know, we don't have any Vermont Yankee closings, but when we used to, our numbers used to really jump. But maybe if the economy gets better, all our numbers will pick up. IB in Dover is important. And the only other point I wanted to bring up is, you know, we talk a lot about the building in Dover. And one of the things is, and I've joked with people for years, and Bill will remember this before he even worked in Dover, was that there will always be a school in Dover, a school building, because out of all the Wyndham Central schools, including Leland and Gray, Dover is the only building that has a municipal sewer system. Our growth is unlimited because we can put our sewage into the sewer plant. All the other schools, when they want to grow or expand, they need to try to find out or fight with the on-site sewage systems between trying to get water and trying to get sewage. That's not easy to do. And the other thing is that the Dover campus is 30 acres, which is, I think, almost 3 times the size of Leland and Gray's campus. So we also have the most property around our campus. So there are some advantages to the Dover campus. The other thing is, when you're all going through your security plans, you know, Dover's had an emergency plan because we have a full-time police department in town, not relying on the state police. And if any of you have called the state police to get services here, I know in my former job, I spent one time over an hour and a half waiting for a trooper to show up staying in a situation to allow that. So there are some natural advantages in Dover, but I think the plan and what we really want to do is we do want to have it be one big community. That's why I proposed option B plus, build a new structure, and then it's nobody's old structure. And again, I don't know where we're going to end up, but I think we're going to end up, there's, like you said, advantages to both programs. And I think that we just have to hammer it out. I don't think there is going to be huge major changes in the first year, but I think we need to plan on changes and we need to be proactive, because I think even as Dover and Wardsboro are together now, I think you're going to see the state have Act 60 whatever, and they're going to want even bigger and bigger districts. And I think this was, the first move. And I think in the next few years you'll see more moves, because the Burlingtons are getting bigger, and they still think that the little schools and their little schools are under 150 and 200 students cost them too much money. So without getting too political and getting into too much of the state politics, I'm all for something in between A and B. I'm just not sure what it is. So, short one?
Yes.
Because then we want the public to.
So, two things. For me, I'm not in a long, over multiple years, I'm not really willing for us to increase spending if we're not increasing students. So, I would like to see us, I think that notion of kind of easing into something, giving people a lot of time, giving kids time, giving parents and communities time to think about, to get to know each other, play with different things. And the only other thing I would say is I did recently get to speak to some folks from the Taconic and Green merger above us. And I was really struck by this very simple thing that they said, which, afterwards I thought, oh, of course, which was that people coming into their communities were finding it much easier to come into their communities. Schools are very important when people are thinking about where to live, because they had more choices of where to go, because in all of these towns, the education opportunities are the same and were excellent. And so, they're further ahead in all of this process. So that made me feel really good, like, oh, that would be great, actually, to have, hey, our towns, it doesn't matter where you live in our town, kids are going to get great education. So, and that happens now, but that you don't even have to think about, what the differences are in your communities.
So if you folks give me one quick second, there was a really good article in Vermont Digger on July 31st, and I can leave this and maybe we can make some copies. So it was about a school in somewhere up north who merged, and one of the things that they did was they decided that they had two separate schools, and there's three schools. There was Whiting, Sudbury, and Leicester, and instead of all offering the same program, what they did was each school became unique for a certain aspect, and I don't remember what they all were. And they would allow the parents to pick whichever school they want to go to. And one of the comments is that it's the places that are doing the exact same thing as a different facility 5 miles down the road. That's where the vulnerability lies. And I mean, that really plays into when I'm saying, somewhere between option A and option B. So they're a unified school district. They're not going to do everything exactly the same. And so what they're working with is Shrewsbury's is carbon neutral with energy. It's doing a lot of work in the community garden and kids work on sustainability. Another school is immersion wilderness program for the students. And then the third, I can't remember what the third school is doing, but I'll make some copies. And I mean, that's something that you know, we've talked about having things the same, but maybe we don't want to be the same. And in our school choice policy, if you want your child to do the IB, then they would have to go to the Dover campus. If you want your child to be in the multi-grade classrooms because you think that is a better atmosphere, you know, then you could go to the Wardsboro campus and we could take care of that. So after I read this article, I thought it was a really good article. I meant to bring it up earlier, so I'm sorry I didn't. So we're gonna go out to you folks, and if there's any comments, if there isn't, that's fine too. Yes. Sorry.
Did you have something first, something?
No.
I love hearing all of your opinions, Carrie. I really appreciate your take on sort of keeping the structure of the schools and having that overlap and merge. I think that is beautiful. I feel a little bit unsure with what Laura and Rich, what you guys were saying, like talking about sort of testing, Laura was talking about, you know, sort of easing into things and playing together and see what happens down the road. And Rich, when I was hearing you talk about, you know, at the state level, they're saying, you know, our population in Wardsboro is going down and that that could potentially close this school. That just leans me more toward we can't take students in.
So what I was saying is during the study, that's one of the things that was brought up.
Okay.
So by us doing the merger, that prevents, the state will never be.
Okay,
you know,
I misunderstood that.
Right. So no, what I'm saying is those are the kind of things we looked at the study that I felt helped Wardsboro.
Okay.
That was, you know, being more generous.
Okay, it sounded like you had said that if our population kept declining, that eventually the state would just be closing us anyway.
No.
So that would have been before.
It would be our decision, and then, you know, we have the two buildings that we can play with.
Okay.
Or we can decide to make one building in one town.
No, that's-
It gives us more options, but.
Okay, because that's not how it came across, and that made me feel like, well, if we extract half of our student population by choice, we're decreasing our, you know, the students in this building. Why would we do that if the whole point is to raise the population?
So as an example, there's some towns that chose, with small schools, that chose not to become part of a merger.
Right.
So then the state of Vermont, the Secretary of Education and the Education Department looked at those schools, and those schools had to say why they felt they should be a standalone school.
Sure.
Okay, and there's three in Wyndham Central. There's Stratton, Wyndham, and Marlboro that did that. Some got approved and some got denied. And when they didn't approve them to be a standalone, their decision was that, or their recommendation to the Board of Ed, the State Board of Ed, who gets the final say, was that no, they should merge with somebody else as a good, you know, that would be the appropriate move.
Sure.
So if, say, Wardsboro and Dover chose not to merge voluntarily, the state may have come down in the report and said, and that's one of the things that they were kind of signaling, that, you know, with declining numbers, this, you know, our structures being the same, that they would probably more than likely say, we're going to merge you guys, and then there's some protections that we couldn't have done. We wouldn't have been able to say we won't close a school unless there's a majority vote of the townspeople, because the state didn't want that. And it wouldn't require a full majority vote of the unanimous vote of the board. So that's why I was saying I think we did some things to protect that.
And I knew all of that, that's why I got confused, because the way that came out, I was like, wait, that sounds like it's still a possibility, so.
I was not understanding why we would voluntarily pull kids out of a school that you're already saying you're worried about the student population in it.
So I would say that one of the policy pieces
that is really being pushed by the administration now are student-staff ratios, okay? And one of the things that I have been pushing for, and the Dover board has been pushing for a long time, is an adjustment on weighting, so that does not count the same, but we don't have that.
Okay.
And so, in fact, Wardsboro has a much lower staff-student ratio. And so, if we are unable to protect ourselves, that could end up costing us money. You know, I mean, we're fighting as hard as we can, but that's just the reality of the situation. That is a huge policy fight that is happening right now. And so some of the proposals that Bill has made protect us, potentially, you know, thinking about if our population continues to decline as opposed to grow, which we would like to see it grow. So.
And we're hoping if we can offer better programs, that we can get that to grow, that we can have people want to move into the area. And I think the other thing is, we've seen a lot of movement between Dover and Wardsboro, some between Dover and Wilmington, where a family may be renting in Wardsboro, like Rick's case. You know, he lived in Dover for a while, and then he, you know, moved to Wardsboro, back to Wardsboro. You know, if he did that, his child could go to, you know, it would be in the same school. He wouldn't be pulling his child out. And I don't know if the Wardsboro board has had it a lot in Dover. A lot of times we've had parents, it's, you know, Christmas and their child, they moved to Wilmington, they want the child to finish out the school year in Dover. Because it's different. And that's the one thing too, that, you know, now the two towns are the same, so it's not as tough a decision. It's the same. It's the same school system, just different campuses. So does that make more sense now?
It does. I have one more question.
Is there anybody else that has any comments or questions? Okay, so seeing none, if you want, do you want parts to write on instead? Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's just, this one's a little question. This is a nice, heavy, deep question. So, and I don't know if there's even an answer, but I keep hearing you say there's no more Dover school, there's no more Wardsboro school, and I know a while back there was talk about, well, there were people in the audience saying like, well, we want to keep our school names, but we're under the same school district, and like, isn't Brattleboro all one school district with all their different elementary schools? Like, are we actually changing? And if we are, I mean, that's minor. But I'm curious if that's part of the discussion or if it's just something you keep saying, like, are we actually changing the school names or are we?
I think that has to be a decision. But
Okay.
yeah, there is no more Wardsboro School District. I mean, that's.
No, the dish, but if we just drop that, I'm just asking if that's part of
I
the.
just think for simplicity to help people understand, because there's still people that say, well, the Wardsboro school is going to do this, and it's not. It's the River Valley schools that are going to decide what is done in the buildings. It's not going to be just, Wardsboro's not going to decide what happens in Wardsboro. Dover doesn't decide what happens in Dover. It's 3 members on the board from each town will decide what happens in the district, and then the administrator then makes it happen in the buildings or what needs to happen. So I just think it's good to, if you start thinking of it as River Valleys, that's when somebody graduates in 6th grade after 2020, or in 2020 and beyond, it's not going to be the Dover school they graduated from. It's going to be the River Valleys Unified School District.
Is that actually what the name of the, like, I mean,
Yes.
as an adult person who understands the school district piece in 2 buildings, 1 school, 2 buildings, that's what I was asking. Is that actually when my daughter graduates from 6th grade, if 6th grade is still in this building, because she will be the first class to graduate from this school under the River Valleys Unified School District, is that an actual real thing, that she doesn't actually graduate from Wardsboro Elementary, not district, but just the school, that's the name of the school, or are we changing the names of the schools? I don't care about the paychecks, I'm just talking about the school.
My opinion is that it's the River Valley School District that sets everything up, so they would graduate from the River Valley School District, either the Wardsboro campus or the Dover campus. So we could keep the 2 names, but,
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'll find out for that's fine.
I didn't hear what you said. No.
She said that's what I said, like, because it's fine, we'll all find out together, it's not even a big deal, I was just curious.
Somebody else? Yes.
I just want to say that I really appreciated the conversation this evening. I also really appreciated Gary's comments about finding a way to create a culture between the 2 schools, even if the students aren't in the same school, whether that's through, some sort of electronic communication, through a class every week. I think that would definitely help to keep the community feeling between the 2 schools. And the idea of doing the music teacher with 1 curriculum, I think that is wonderful with the different concerts. I thought those were all very good ideas. I'm wondering if that would go on to sports teams as well. which seems like it would only benefit because there's such small numbers, and from the, there's only so many students. I do think also that a robust, a very good school choice policy will be important. I think that will help to add value to families looking to buy homes in either district, that they have the option to send their children to 2 different schools. I think that that's something unique that not every town in Vermont can say, that you have the ability to come and visit those schools, figure out what works best for your family. Maybe there are families that work towards Wilmington or Mount Snow, that's a more feasible solution for them, but they found their dream home in Wardsboro. So I think that's good. I also am very happy to see that the board is taking the feedback and recognizing the significant safety issues with traveling and transporting students on a school bus back and forth between their homes in Wardsboro and the Dover Elementary School. I think that's a big concern that a lot of parents feel, and I think that if there was a proposal where Dover students were being asked to come from the Dover community to the Wardsboro community, I think the concern would be the same, because we're all parents and we all want our children to be safe. And I respect and appreciate all the work that the board has done to make sure that that happens. So I am anxious to see what the proposal looks like. I understand that you can't stay the same, but that you're moving slowly is definitely something that is going to be more well received and help to create that community feeling between the 2 towns that I think benefits everybody, especially the children that are being educated. I'm a little concerned with Laura's comment about not wanting to pay any more money, because I know that in the original option A, there wasn't a $70,000 estimated cost, and I think some of that is IB. I appreciated, Rich, what you said, that perhaps an idea, and something I consider too, that perhaps families, if they want to have IB, they send their kids to the Dover school. If they don't, if they're happy with the way things are, they like the structure and the way that learning is being facilitated at the Wardsboro School, they have that option. Maybe that helps with the $70,000. I think the other dollars in there, I think, were a lot of professional development, which I think, I would hate to not spend money on professional development. I respect the fact that you're very sensitive with our tax dollars, that you don't want to spend more money than we have to, but I'm hoping that we can find a way to still save money by sharing maybe a music teacher, an art teacher, things like that, and also all be able to provide professional development, because obviously we all want our teachers to have those resources.
So just as an aside, because we're one school district now, we did, Tammy and Matt worked on hiring a new music teacher. I guess, I don't know, I'm not sure what happened with Wardsboro's teacher, but Dover's retired after 20 some odd years. So there is the same teacher. And again, this also allows the administration more at the supervisory union level to move staff around. And one of the things that we've had that's, since you're fairly new to coming to meetings, I think you said at the last meeting, one of the things that Wyndham Central has done that is like almost unheard of when we go around the state is Wyndham Central has positions that they call, that we call agency fund. So that's how we all are able to have a band, instrumental music teacher. Dover couldn't afford one, Wardsboro, none of them, but together we can create a full-time position so that we can get some stability in that. And that's going to also continue with Wyndham Central. That shouldn't change at all. And then the other, you made one other comment that I wanted to, one of the things though that we need to be very careful of with school choice is, again, is that we don't want to make one school not viable. And so it may be that, one of the things that we talked about is on a school choice thing is, we have to look at town of residence, where the siblings go, and that we're not going to allow everybody to choose. There's going to have to be some way. So if, let's just say, for instance, we keep it that the multi-grades are here and IB is in Dover, and after a year, every parent in Wardsboro says, oh my gosh, this IB is wonderful, and wants to go to Dover, then that created what we've been trying to prevent.
Right, and then that gives you the feedback that you need to invest the dollars in the Wardsboro Elementary School to do the IB. That would give you that feedback to know it is really desirable for the parents. They're going there specifically for that. And that's something that we can discuss as a community in a couple of years if and when that would happen.
So that was part of the reason for that survey was because 90% of the Wardsboro parents said they would like to go to Dover. We asked, why would you want to go to that building? And they say, because of the IB program, then we would know it as we're creating the structure now, and we wouldn't lose that year or 2 years while we try to figure it out. And then the second thing, where you mentioned money with Laura, so one of the things the merger did do for us is it protected a bunch of grants. So it protected the small school grant that Dover's was around 60, 70, Wardsboro was 100 and...
I think combined was 155.
Okay, so there's an extra 155,000, and if we didn't combine, then we would have lost together. It also protected the phantom students, which was...
3.5%. So Wardsboro was about 2 students.
So I just don't know the Wardsboro numbers that well. And it also... Yeah. Okay, and then we also get a tax break. So we get an 8642 tax break starting this year. Of course, I'm waiting for to find out with bated breath from the newly elected legislature where that money's coming from. So my thought is they're probably going to raise the rate 20 cents and then give us an 8-cent discount saying, look what we did. But so those are some things that we know that next year the rates are going to go up. So that 8 cents may just keep us at level playing field. But I don't know what the rates are, and I think there was a question this weekend. I was at another meeting and somebody asked, and I think Dover's and Wardsboro's tax rates are pretty close.
They're like 6 cents, I think is the difference.
Yeah, and I think you guys are lower.
6 cents lower.
Wardsboro's a little lower now, but hopefully together, if we can, we should find some cost savings somewhere. Even if we have to spend more here, there may be less somewhere else. And that's what we need to, in next meeting or in 2 weeks, is to give Bill some more direction so we can say, okay, this is what we want to see. And then he can work some real numbers up, and then we can have those discussions. And again, while we're working the numbers up, if we were to say, hey, look, to bring IB to Wardsboro, it's only $500 in the first year, then it may be a good thing to do. Or as Carrie was saying, maybe we just do the initial training with Wardsboro and see how it goes, and see what they think of it. Or maybe we try to have that IB night that we talked about, and maybe more parents like it. So there's still a lot of balls to juggle.
So, and I just want to, I have never been first about cost, ever. I've been on the school board for 17 years. So I am first prioritizing making sure that we're offering a quality education for our kids. We have a situation with the education financing formula right now that has been going on for many years. We're looking at next year some pretty dramatic tax increases right now if we do nothing except exactly what we did this year. Nothing. We're already looking at pretty dramatic tax increases. And so I feel like I have to say, as we're coming together, I think it is completely reasonable for us to be looking for efficiencies so that we can improve our opportunities. I think we have to give Bill direction about, we want to improve the programs, but we also want to do that without, we want your goal to be, don't give us a higher budget. Let's start from that place. Let's look at what comes back. And if the program that comes back is not acceptable, I'll be the first one that stands up and says so. But I think we've got to give some goals and some, places to start from, so.
Yes.
Jill, we want to thank all of you for following along with the vision and the mission. Of course, equity and safety are such a big thing that we talked about for so long. The other thing is that elephant in the room is going to stay there until we can hear about the IB program. Can we get that together soon?
Yes. I talked to Matt about it a little bit. He was on vacation, and then he and I were supposed to meet on Friday, and I just got swamped at work.
I will tell you that the 2 coordinators at Dover met with the principal at Dover yesterday and have planned to prepare a presentation for you all on the 20th.
The problem is we want to do it here. And I think it would be better if we had it. So we could.
They can do it twice. They can wait.
That's nice.
Hey,
I had to do it twice.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was being rude for him, so.
So I really appreciate that. Thank important, but I want to be really clear in saying that I do not think that is enough for Wordsworth. So I think that's a great way to start and to talk about, okay, what are the next things we need to do? What did we do in Dover? As we said, you know, board members went to IB schools, teachers had some of this exposure, we had open houses, you know, where we talked about this, so I think we need to have a plan. I think it's a great program. I think if you don't know what it is, how could you possibly want to do it? You know, it's a big change, but it's not really a big change, but it is a big change.
So let me ask this then, because I think it would be an important thing to do in Wardsboro. What we could do, because our next thing is, if we're all set, I'd like to thank every board member, because I know this was a very difficult thing to actually be put on the spot. And I figured Laura has more experience talking to people that don't always agree with her vision or her thoughts. So we let her go first. And thank you for that, Laura. So I appreciate every board member, because everybody was prepared and everybody did some homework. So we all earned our pay for tonight. The next question was, where do we go from here? So I think, if I'm hearing everybody, if I could summarize it real quick, we need to get more information out about the IB program, and we need to figure out how we're going to determine between A and B where we go. Would that be a correct statement in very simplistic terms?
Yes.
Bill, with all the conversations you've heard, and I appreciate you coming over from the West River meeting, because I really want you to hear the comments and stuff and the board members' thoughts. Do you think you could refine I don't know what you would call it, A&a-half? Do you want to try to come up with something else that can kind of give us some guidance at the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you could do that, I think that would be good. And again, folks, have the understanding that whatever he's presenting is not what may happen. It's just a thought, and it's just to kind of bring everything that's been put together. Is everybody good with that? Yep, go ahead.
Will you guys come up with some things as well, or does it all fall to Bill to come up with like what that next thing, like based on what you guys discussed here, hearing each other? I don't know how much you guys have talked in private, like if you had an idea of where you sort of each stood, but I mean, you have this and you're, you know, tasking him with A plus A&a-half, whatever it is. I was just curious if that's something, because the decision kind of falls to you guys. Do you come and say, okay, that's a good thing, but I also have this, what do you guys think? And kind of find the middle ground on 7 minds.
That's why I was hoping you did this, so he got to hear what every board member was thinking. The other thing is, there's not a board member here who is an educator. I don't believe. Did you go to it? I don't know everybody's background, but I know we don't have any active teachers on the board.
Okay.
So the other thing is, we can come up with some broad ideas, but we need our educational expert, which is right now our superintendent, to work with other education people to kind of, because we may say, hey, what we're thinking, Bill, is we want every child to rotate through each school every other day, and he's going to say, wow, that's just crazy. It's not education sound and it doesn't work. Or we may want to say, hey, we want no grades. We're just going to have everybody come into school and wherever they fit in, you know, at whatever level. And he may say that's never going to work.
Sure.
Or he may say that it would. So I think that was my thought.
Okay.
And just for the record, Tennille, we can't all talk.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Just for the record.
And I didn't know that. Okay.
Well,
But can you, so you gave your, I'm curious as somebody in the community and very curious. I give you all credit because I'm sure this is a very stressful task. So I get it that you're looking toward somebody who is an educator or like more directly connected with the education field. But if he comes back with something and it's like tweaked a little bit, but it has to keep tweaking, I was just curious if you guys, since you did your other research and took your notes, so that when he comes with what he has from education people, and you guys have this to look at as parents and community members members and taxpayers and saying like, you know, I listened to what my fellow board members had to say. I have kind of an idea of what Bill's gonna do. I've heard what the community has to say. And as a parent, as a citizen, maybe if it looked like this, because again, it's just an idea. So I was just curious if you guys did that as well, so that when it comes back, you're not sitting there going, oh, well, maybe if I'd thought about it, I could tweak it this way so it doesn't all fall in one lap.
So what happens is we cannot have discussion except in meetings. And it used to be so bad, like, you know, board members there couldn't be a majority of the board members anywhere. So the one thing that we do is, like, I would send an email out, I sent the comments out to people ahead of time, just so they would have them to look at, but we didn't have any discussion back and forth. Bill, I wrote them out, Bill did the answers, I made a couple comments because I noticed I hadn't translated the card right, because it didn't make any sense when I looked at it after he answered it. And then what usually happens is Rick and I, as chair and co-chair, meet with Bill the week before the meeting to kind of go over the agenda and make sure that Bill has the stuff that we need. And sometimes he'll give us a preview, sometimes he doesn't. Just so that he kind of gives him a chance to kind of say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, but we don't share it with anybody else, so that we all kind of get it at the same time, and that you folks get it at the same time. So, and we try to do it in public so that nobody says, oh, you guys all sat there and decided what you're gonna do, and then you asked us to give our opinion, but you already made a decision. So I can definitely say there was no decisions have been made, and that, you know, except that I asked everybody, you know, to come back with some thoughts, and, you know, you saw everybody was fairly well prepared. Rick had 4 pages written in his book. Two. So, but it was all nicely scripted out. So that's the kind of stuff we do. And then I talked to Dwight about the, you know, he was doing the study, you know, to make sure he had that, and how was that going, and that's the only kind of stuff.
I think I was just saying, like, and that all makes total sense, like, that next layer. I was hearing Laura say at the beginning, like, having some concerns about the timeline, because it isn't a ton of time, and if it's sort of a version of a repeated meeting, I know that it's like the people in the room make the difference, but sort of, you know, moving along, I was just sort of trying to help expedite that process, because if you're 6 different people sitting there, and if you're sitting at home and you're like, if I get to decide all by myself, what would this look like? And you make your notes, and then Bill comes with his educated guess over here, and you can say, well, that's kind of close, I had that note, or, well, what did you think about this over here? Because if I was making the plan, this is what it would look like, and has anybody considered that? Because you're bringing it all together. So it's just sort of trying to help that process along, because you guys do have to make this decision, and obviously I can only guess that somewhere you have, each of you, an idea of what you would like this to look like, even if it's not all hammered out, because it's big. And instead of waiting for his next move, then making your next, I was just saying you all make it together.
Well, and I think, you know, I'll let Laura talk here, but I think everybody here, and correct me if I'm wrong, has been listening to everything. They're having thoughts run through their head.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when Bill presents his thing, we'll be able to, again, have more conversation. It's not gonna be a brand new presentation where we ask that the board not make any comments, so that there was, you know, that you folks got to all see in both towns and make your comments, or get your first opinion of it, and then let us talk. So there are some, we got beat up pretty hard at town meeting in Dover, because we would not tell them how we thought they should vote on the merger. We were trying to just let them decide and just give them facts.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I can speak for myself, but we've been talking about principles, what's important to us, you know, for a couple of years.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and now it feels like it's starting to actually go pretty quick. And, you know, seriously, I could go with either, you know, tweaking of either of those, but stability, you know, keeping the strong schools in the districts is really important, looking at the cost, looking at the quality, making sure that the equity is there, either in similar programs or a really robust choice, you know? So this process for me works really well in terms of having you, having us. I mean, Rich has facilitated all of us responding to bills. And now, you know, I like the idea of having our highly paid instructional leader go and synthesize Really, no, seriously, I mean, this is what he gets the big bucks for, you know, like, okay, you've heard all of that, come back, you know, and tell us, and we may not like exactly what he comes back with. I mean, I feel like that is the basis on which I want to hire a superintendent. Can I trust you to come back and deliver this? I expect that. So, I mean, I hope that helps.
I want to make a quick point on Bill's behalf, is he's one of the lowest paid superintendents in the state.
True story. True story.
And I think he is probably the best superintendent, and I could not imagine trying to go through this process
Yes.
and go through the merger without you, Bill, so I really appreciate you, and to your better paid. Thank you.
Nice segue to, so your next meeting, right, is the third meeting. So,
Well, what I'm wondering is, does the board have an issue if we were to do the next meeting in Morrisboro? So we'll double up in Morrisboro, maybe we'll start,
Just so you
no,
know.
because we messed over. Then we came
This
here.
is already.
Oh, so this would be the third one, but if we did that, maybe start a little early and gave the IB coordinators an hour up front, how much time do you think you need?
20 minutes.
I'd like to comment
Go ahead.
just about the IB, the possible worry about it coming to Wardsboro.
Hey, hang on, Allison, I'm sorry. So Allison Sullivan and Sue Newman, for those of you that don't know, when we went to the IB program, we needed to find a coordinator. And we asked in the school, and there was a few people that came up, so I said, hey, why don't I have two of them in case one leaves for some reason? And it worked out really well because they could work with each other and bounce ideas off each other. So they've actually been through it from the beginning, from when we decided. Allison's been with us for 15, 18,
28 years.
20 years, and Sue's been there before I was on board. Yeah, I wasn't gonna be telling people how long.
Sorry.
So, go ahead,
To
Allison.
add on to what you said, in addition to being full-time teachers, that's why we needed to share this job. So I just wanted to say that, yes, we can give a presentation to the community, the parents. It's pretty dry stuff. It's not very exciting. That's probably why a lot of board members can't articulate and say, pinpoint exactly what it is. It's something that you learn by being hands-on and being engaged in it. You can go on the IBO.org website. You can see videos. We will be showing those. We'll be taking quotes from that. And we'll do the best to give you the information that you're looking for. I think that it doesn't really matter what we say to all of you. I like what Carrie said about having the teachers be involved in the learning and let them feel it out and feel, is this something that feels right to me? And I think that's what happened with us. We got to taste it, we liked it, and then we went to our board and said, hey, we want to do this. Can you go to the town and pitch this and support us on this? I don't think it's going to work if a board or another school is mandating it to another group of teachers or parents. I think it's going to have to be the teachers engaged in it and liking it and deciding that they want it. And if they want it, great. And if they don't, they're doing fantastic the way they are. So I just wanted to put that out there.
I think you have a question.
So is that something that our Wardsboro teachers could potentially do? Like, did you guys go to an introduction to it? Would that make more sense? To, send our principal and teachers so they could go get that taste for themselves and see, is this going, we teach in this school, is this going to work for the community of students that we have?
I wrote Allison a note during the presentation that we have a few new teachers at Dover School, and one of the requirements is that they must go through IB training. So we will be working on an intro course.
You guys do that training?
We won't be giving the training, we'll support them.
Okay.
But I wrote to Allison during this that we should have the Wardsboro teachers. It's a weekend course.
Okay.
It's an intro. It gives a much better, it would be a different presentation that we were preparing for the 20th would be for what are the opportunities for the kids. It would be a very different presentation to give to
I mean, that
teachers.
sounds like it's more viable, because as a parent, I keep hearing, I'm still struggling to hear the benefits of it, but I teach early, not in this school age. So, I think if that's what we're talking about, like, I think let's send in the people who it is literally going to impact. Like, is this going to enhance your curriculum, or do you feel like it's going to just get in your way?
Well, let me do this then, if it's okay. For I don't know how many people here from the audience that aren't a teacher from Wardsboro. How many of you would prefer that, would you want to still see a presentation on the IB addressed to the parents? Or do you want to have the teachers address it to the teachers? And then, you want to do both? Okay, so then let me go back to the board. Do we want to have our next meeting in Wardsboro and maybe start half an hour early, 6:30, and have from 6:30 to 7 be an IB presentation? And then because of the Labor Day holiday, would we want to just have one meeting in Dover on the third Monday? Because you got a couple holidays on Mondays, and unfortunately,
Your
we
best
do.
on the schedule, I can see.
What's that?
So you guys are all rolling at West River and River Valley. You guys are
We
flying.
had first and third Mondays before they did.
Great. So, I hate that they're going to do September 11th instead of the 10th because they're not going to do the 3rd, but they are doing the 17th. They are doing the 20th. You guys are doing the 20th. If you're going to do the 20th and you want me to come back with another proposal, I would ask if I could go at 6:30 so that I could get out of here at 7:15 and get to them at 7:30. I don't know how it works. I have to tell you guys up front, what I'm going to bring back to you on the 20th is not going to be earth-shattering. What I've heard from you, what I see from you, what I've heard from the community is you want A with equity. And so that's what I'm going to give you. And it's not going to look a whole lot different than option A. It's just going to kind of lay it out and maybe make some decisions about where you want to do it. But you want professional development. You want equity in opportunities. You don't want kids traveling. So that's what I'm going to give you.
All for less money, right?
And it won't cost less money. that my job is to give you back what you asked for. So the first time I gave you 2 things. Now I'm hearing you and I'm going to give that back to you. So it's not going to be dramatic. I don't think it'll take a lot of time.
So let's ask the board a question. We're getting late. We still got an executive session thing to do. And we got to talk about a calendar or a schedule on budgeting. Is it the intent of this board to basically not change and basically modify A a little bit? Stay closer to A or go closer to B? I don't know how to word it. If what Bill's saying is I don't see equity being, according to what they're doing up north, is if we don't have to have equity between the buildings. We can have the buildings be totally different. We just have to allow people the chance to pick where they want to go. So we could leave the programs exactly as they are. So if you want foreign language, you go to the Dover campus. If you want combined classrooms, you go to the Wardsboro. I don't know where you separate the difference out.
I think that would be an option.
Right.
I'm not going to give you back one option because you guys have talked about it.
Maybe break those into 2 options, essentially.
Yeah.
So we'll get those back and then sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to get strengthened into choice, or you're going to get equitable offerings with choice.
Yeah.
Well, the choices that would be something we're working on down the road.
Exactly.
Right. So I think the choice just stays. The
Choice is gonna happen.
matter
Right.
whether we have A and a half, or B, or B plus.
Right.
Well, actually, B plus didn't have choices, it's on the bill. Are you guys all good with that? If he's basically gonna come back with it?
I just want to be really clear that without significant increase in opportunities, I'm not really going to be willing to spend more money. So, I'm willing to spend more money.
We're not on the money yet, we've gotta figure the structure first, and then we can get to the money, because until we tell him, we don't know what it's gonna be.
Yes, but I think that's a good quote, that's a good guide for, I mean, if I'm the only one that feels that way, that's fine. But, you know, that is, I think, important for Bill to know, if that is. I am happy to spend more money in combining these two governance structures if we are significantly increasing, are you okay?
Yeah.
Opportunity for kids. But I'm not willing to spend more money to keep things the same. I'm not really willing to do that.
Anybody else on the board, any thoughts? And what do we want this task bill to do?
I mean, I was hoping for maybe a little bit more detail, and maybe I'll throw out an idea, what kind of past ideas are, but foreign language, for example. You know, I was thinking about that. Foreign language starts, I think, from maybe pre-kindergarten, kindergarten in Dover up to 6th grade. Wardsboro doesn't have foreign language. Maybe sharing the foreign language teacher, but starting at 3rd grade for both classes, so that you're not spending that time, the teacher's not spending that time in lower grades, where they're learning a lot of other basics, starting in 3rd grade perhaps, in both schools. You know, as a way of maybe not spending more money, but maybe trying to use your resource more, like better, more efficiently. And that was one example that I was thinking. Because I'd like to have it in both, but maybe it doesn't need to start in kindergarten when they're learning so many more basic ideas. And maybe it's a more structured, more intense starting at 3rd grade to 6th grade, and then we'd have it for both schools. So I'd really like to actually maybe have something more specific like that as an example, where, you know, we're gonna give it to you both, but, you know, I agree with you. I don't want to spend more money by doing the same. If we're gonna spend more money, we want more opportunities.
And
which is a challenge.
Ideally, I'd like us to not spend more money. I'd like us to find the opportunities to better share what we have, and create new opportunities with what we have.
Right. So I was hoping for maybe more specifics, like that as an example.
The specifics may not be what you are imagining.
Yeah.
And I think that was Tanita's point, is that I'm going to go imagine something, and I'm going to chat with Tammy and Matt, but it might not be what's in your brain right now. I will tell you, I don't see creating more opportunities costing less.
Right. You told us that.
Right? And I also don't see removing opportunities as a benefit.
So how about if we do this then, Bill? Maybe it's premature to give it to you, so maybe the assignment to the board is at the next meeting to say, you know, give me your structure, how you see it.
I'll give you mine right now.
No, I don't want it right now.
I mean, I have an idea.
So hang on a second. I think that's what we should do. The next meeting, I'm gonna ask each board member to bring I'm gonna promote you to superintendent for the hour, and you guys each come up with a proposal, one sheeter. No, you had more than one sheet. We gotta keep that. So we can have as many sheets as Bill had.
Yeah, the
and
2.5 sheets.
Yeah, but that was for 2 proposals, so you get a sheet and a quarter. Everybody come up with their proposal. How's that? Does that work for you guys?
Yeah,
And then I need it in writing. You're gonna give it to me before we start. We don't want to see anybody changing it. So how about if we do this? Why don't we meet in Wardsboro, if you guys are okay with that?
On the 20th.
On the 20th. Why don't we do the IP presentation beforehand? Are you guys okay with that here?
Can I go? He wants to go first, then.
We don't even need you, Bill. We'll give you next meeting off because we'll get our ideas. They'll be in writing. We'll have the discussion. You'll have the video to watch. You'll have this, and then you're going to tell West River the next meeting you're spending with us because in September you're going to have to come to us.
What date is your next meeting?
So, can you bear with Carrie may not be here at the next meeting, so she'll give me hers in writing if people are okay with that. and I'll just present that as Barry's, and we'll know with the meeting, so I can't Barry. Okay, so then if we're gonna be here on the 20th, we're gonna meet in Dover sometime in September, but we're gonna have to really hammer down, and we're gonna have to make some tough decisions. I'm gonna guarantee everybody and the people watching in TV land, that not everybody's gonna be happy. Some are gonna be less happy, some are gonna be more happy. But that is the board's job, is to make some tough decisions. And, you know, one of the things that we try to do is we got you a vision, we got you a mission, and we're trying to put children first. And we're really just thinking about your children, because not everybody, you know, we're not getting paid big bucks to be here. And so we're trying to do what's best for everybody, and we're gonna, you know, we'll do the best we can. So in September, you said West River already took the second Monday?
It took the 11th, the second Tuesday. Counting on you guys taking the 10th.
There is a holiday on that day. Can we still meet?
Yeah, they didn't count on us taking the 10th. They didn't want to take the 10th because it's a holiday.
Right. Tell them they can have the 10th and we'll take the 11th.
They're locked on the 11th.
Nobody should be.
The next Monday's the 17th.
Well, that's what we're supposed to do.
Can I just ask, is there an ability, and I'm just throwing this out there, is there an ability to have a second meeting about the presentation in Dover? You know, I know we're running short.
No, we can do it in Dover.
Why?
They can do it the next meeting in Dover.
Yeah. I mean,
So that gives the ability for people who can't make the 20th to
I'm
come.
just gonna skip that meeting, go right to Dover on the 17th.
Oh, Tuesday the 4th.
Yeah, Tuesday's the 4th.
You guys want to meet, that's first day of school, right?
Wardsboro has a school board meeting that night, so we'll be there.
First day of school is the week before.
Pardon?
First day of school is the week before.
Okay.
Wardsboro has a school board meeting that night before.
The Wardsboro, Dave.
The only reason why I say that is to have a meeting, whatever we're presenting in Wardsboro on the 20th, to do that in Dover is, you know, I'm so glad our Dover teachers are here, but one thing I'm disappointed with is that we don't have enough Dover families. I'm really disappointed, quite frankly, that we don't have more Dover families here. I know it's busy in the summer, and we've had a couple people that have been here definitely, but I think it would be important to have Dover families saying why IB is important to them, and.
Yes, we can definitely, we can do that at 6:30. And the other thing, so we can deal with that. We'll make sure that do you guys mind doing this presentation twice?
And maybe it's not a presentation twice, I think it's a presentation of the structure of what we're looking at, is what I'm saying. I don't think that it needs to be a presentation of IB. They know what IB is. I'm talking about more of our presentation of what the structure is that we're looking for.
So not what they're doing, what we're going to do?
Yes.
Well, we'll do that, because we'll be moving it forward, and we'll have some idea where it's going, and then get to see it.
But,
Go ahead, you.
but the next meeting would be more of.
We're gonna have to start moving forward. We
Yeah,
can't
no, I understand.
imitate everything that we do. So I think we're gonna present our thing. If Dover parents don't wanna come, maybe they're accepting, they like what they see. Remember, I told you before, I've always been told by parents that when we're not here, it's okay. When we show up in force, there's an issue. And I think that we've done everything to reach out to them. And the Wardsboro parents can make it. They came to Dover also. So I think that we just need to start moving forward. We did the presentation in both towns. We're gonna have the discussion in both towns before we go. I think we need to move forward. And I need to let you speak because I told you.
I just wanted to say that I spoke with a couple of my friends that live in Dover, and I was trying to get them to come to meetings, and their words were, nothing's changing for us. And so, which gave me more of that feeling of like, yeah, you're right. So that's just, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. The word's out there and they're trusting whatever it is, but those are the words from friends of mine that live in that town, that they don't feel at risk, because when they looked at these proposals, it was a more dramatic change for us or something that was staying pretty much the same for, you know what I mean? Like either we were staying pretty much the same, knowing that it's a conversation, and I was like, but it's a conversation, the wheels are turning, there might be an option C that rolls across the table, and if you're not there, and they're like, yeah, I don't think that will happen. So just so you're you know on that side of the table, that's sort of the word in the community that I am talking to, which is what it is.
So that we can get out of here at a reasonable time before we all become lunch, or carriages change to Republicans. So we're gonna meet on the 20th here. The IB people left at 6:30.
6:30?
Yeah, and then we all need a proposal from you all. Bill, you don't need to come to the next one, but we will meet before the meeting to get the agenda set up. Okay, no, next week, next Monday.
No, I have to do that.
Yeah, and then we're gonna meet on Tuesday the 4th in Dover.
Oh, Richard,
Right.
we have a Dover board meeting.
On the 20th. Well, we'll have to be here.
Well, we have a work group board meeting tonight as well.
On the 4th, well.
20th.
I can't do it. Very
Very good.
See if we can
Change that meeting on the 4th.
Yeah.
Okay, let us know. So let's tentatively set for the 4th.
Okay.
I'm a little upset with West River, and I'm gonna give Joe a call. He would return the call.
And that's gonna be,
In Dover, at 6:30.
Yeah,
yes, that's done.
and then it'll be the 18th, we'll meet again in Dover, right?
So where would we in September 4th?
In Dover.
Tuesday.
We're meeting Tuesday in Dover, and then we're meeting the 3rd Monday in Dover.
That's the 17th.
We'll take care of Dover, just move it.
The 17th or the 18th?
Whatever the 3rd Monday is, I don't know.
17th.
Yeah, fine, it's the 3rd Monday
Got it.
in Dover. I tell him to calendar. Here, let me check my smartphone. Oh, it says that it's 9:52. Okay, guys, it's getting late. Bill,
7 o'clock?
so we're expecting you at the one in Dover.
The 4th.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm busy.
You won't be there? We'll be there. Thank you, Bill. So, the other thing is I need to have an executive session, so can somebody move for executive session for contractual? Carrie moved, do I have a second? White seconds it. All those,
Mike, first class.
Is it 7 p.m. on the 20th?
no, it's 6:30.
6:30 on the 4th as well?
No, it's 7 o'clock on the 4th.
Wow.
6:30 on the 20th.
Mike, can you do something about that?
We gotta move the Wardsboro meeting.
Can you move the Wardsboro meeting?
I'll move it wherever you want.
Yes. No, move the date.
Come to Dover at 6
Come to
o'clock.
Dover at 6 o'clock.
On Tuesday, the 4th?
Yeah.
Do you have the dates?
I do.
I'll talk to Dave tonight.
You know, we had
What? I don't think they said all in favor yet. But they're going into executive session.
Okay, so hey folks, I need everybody to have a motion in seconds, go in executive session. We're not gonna have any. All those in favor say aye. Okay, folks, I need everybody outside.